Welcome to Interstellar Cosmic Conversations, where we share experiences from our hearts to empower others. Hello, Og. Welcome back to Interstellar Cosmic Conversations. It's nice to have you back again. And I am excited to be doing this on August the 8th, after the full moon and the lunar eclipse that's got everybody all energetically excited and maybe a little bit confused. What we're going to do is the same thing that we did last time. You share so much information, and you have got a lot of people that really love what you're sharing, and there's so many questions that it would be impossible for you to be able to answer these for each individual person because you get thousands. I've seen that myself. And so what I have done is I've composed a list of questions that came from the previous interview that we had, and some were shared on YouTube, and some were sent to me through private message. So I am going to start with that. And is there anything you'd like to say before I start asking questions?
Thank you. Thank you for the help in this, maybe not the help, but the assistance in bringing information to the public together. And thank you to the people. I do need a different format for answering questions because it's not really possible to answer all of them. But if, I guess they can't all just like ask you, but that's like a start for, I probably should have told people to ask you beforehand. I don't know if people knew. Yeah. But that basically, I want to look at that as a format, because a good guideline is to bring everything to the public. And so when I'm spending time individually working with people with information that's for the public, it's counterintuitive or counterproductive, because I'm just going to say that in a repeated manner where I could just put it in a public way and everyone can see it. It's like a fountain everybody can drink from instead of individual cups to each town. It's more helpful that way. And then, some things are better one-on-one, and that's fine, but it's just more efficient that way. Yeah. So thank you. I enjoyed it, and thank you. Feels good. Good vibes.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. And you're welcome. I'm really happy to do this. Also don't think for a second that I don't get something spectacular out of it too, because I'm like everyone else. I have questions and I want to know, and we're all trying to remember. So this is something that I feel like is just helpful to all of us. So I'm going to start out with what I feel is a tough one. And the reason I'm doing this, I feel like it's just good to get this one out of the way. And it's something that I've been asked myself when I share my own experiences. And it's not an easy question to answer, but it's necessary just to go ahead and address it. And one of the questions is, I like Og's stream of consciousness info. He doesn't seem to be lying at all, but he doesn't really cite any sources other than Gnostic writings for a moment. Where exactly is this detailed info coming from other than his head? I remain open-minded on what he is saying to a point, but I'm still asking, where is he getting all this greatly detailed stuff from? Thanks.
Okay, and that's a good question. I'm finally closing out these Firefox windows with 122 tabs each. Because my processor's maxing out, and I don't want to melt the computer any more than it already is. And so, right now, what did I say before? It's a good question. Having the capacity to want to know more and to want to know in a definitive manner is a good thing. It's not even just a good thing, it's required. However, to receive the answer and then not want to know that is, again, counterintuitive and counterproductive. And it's also kind of fraudulent in the sense that if a person asks a question, they should be prepared for the answer. That's literally the motto of this society from here on out. or from the whole time. That if you ask the question, you should be prepared for the answer. If you aren't prepared for the answer and you ask the question again, the universe is going to laugh at you because it's going to seem like a big joke. Not you personally, but individuals who do these, basically put themselves in the place to receive the truth on sometimes stressful or difficult to understand things. And then when they get that, what they've been looking for, they're digging and digging and digging, and they hear a chink and they look down and see gold or something, and they slowly just scoop it all back over on top, like, I'm not ready for that yet, and walk away. It's like, well, then you just wasted everybody's time. Which is also why it's good to go in a public venue and do these things, which is why I tend to restrict that. I've been spending a lot of time, especially lately, more at first, more lately, dealing with one-on-one, but I'm revising that, or I guess down to more personal situations with people, whereas when people just want to basically ask questions, I'm going to have to figure out a way to locate the next interview, which has been fairly easy for the past couple of months, and direct them that way, because then they can, it'll give it a better, and this was happening here, which is good. And so then, and that was like the early spiel that I gave on that answer about basically, you gotta be prepared for the answer. If not, we already had the part where things kind of fell apart because just the way this situation works with people wanting to use the ability to ask a question and then not take the answer because it's not something they want, and then use that to try and degrade the relationship or the situation. And that's basically a form of parasitism or mental attack. But the more specific answer was twofold, because specifically, okay, what part of the information, what event, what aspect of it, if anybody has looked into the information about reality, history, the secret, control system, the way the mind works and how reality itself in a way manifests, or my experiences, okay, there's no one part of it at all. There's literally no one part. Every one part is connected to another part, and in that way it's all one, but it all goes into multiple layers. And so what aspect of it, what experience, what group, what, I could use some in words, but it's not beneficial. And as well, that was the other thing I mentioned where, there are guidelines, so on and so forth. It's because we experience these issues where people more or less, hope the traffic doesn't pick up and you can hear all the noise from that window, where the behavior of people pretending to want to help, but really just wanting to pull their own agenda in the midst of these secret groups, playing both sides of the fields, funding both sides of the wars, using a negative aspect scapegoat for somebody to say, well, it's their fault, they're doing it, or he's setting everything up and blah, blah, and that's why I'm being this way. Well, that feeds them because they oriented the Illuminati or the bloodline elite, whatever you want to call them. Well, they oriented themselves so that when people throw that negative energy at them, they grow and they get bigger. And because they're playing the other side as well, when people say, well, it's about knowledge from within, it's about self-control and self-governance and guidance and all that, well, they also put those feeds in the society. So if that's not truly based upon what is within, but it's based upon a scapegoat or a savior program, some external being or some reason that things have to be one way or another, well, they get power from that as well. They're the religionist and the skeptical scientists. They're playing both of it. So anything outside of ourselves is giving that power away. So we have to really be aware of what we're doing with the opportunity we have to ask these questions and so on and so forth. And so the first part or the second part is specifics, how, where, what you're talking about. And then the first part is simply, it's all from direct experience. I specifically will not speak on something if I read about it. The only connection I have to it is some guy said it. And so I see these things in the sky and I went and dreamt about it. And then I read in this book by, a Freemason, this is what's happening. And chances are, if that's all you know about a certain subject, that some Freemason wrote it in the book or some TV show said it, or you saw a glimpse some point, yeah, they can make glimpses appear as well. These things in the sky or whatever it is, chances are that's what they want people to see. That's what they want people to think. That's where the trillions and billions of dollars are going to create this reality TV show. At that point, you can talk about it. That's fine. I'm not going to, again, I'm 100% neutral. Somebody wants to go sit there and do that and give their energy away, I'll tell them that's what they're doing, but I'm not going to hold a knife to their throat and say that's, you can't do that. There are military factions that are going to do that because the timeline will collapse if we permit the same thing to happen, which is mass insanity. That's the plan for these darker groups, to make it go like this. This is until half of people are doing exactly what's on TV, which is complete chaos. The other half of people are doing exactly what's in the politics, which is complete chaos. And you combine everything, and then there's religionists and skeptics, all that, and it makes complete chaos everywhere. And then those who are playing both sides of the field, who put each of those implants or impulses in, they profit. All they do is they come on top of dead bodies and put a flag, and they won. And so apparently that happened. It can't happen again. But the point is, that's where it's going to lead to. Whereas it's going to, people, want to complain, so on and so forth. They're being controlled, oppressed, etc. They're in control. So whatever's happening now is the self-responsibility, self-accountability. That's the only way we get out of having loss of control, by claiming we need to do this and do that because other people are in control and it's a secret takeover, etc. That's going to make that come about. And that's kind of branched on from me saying there are guidelines and things like that, and then people will take that as an excuse to say, basically just make up whatever they want to believe. There are guidelines to stop people from more or less destroying themselves with the information, because it's very sensitive information. And I'll say it right now, if I said everything and everyone involved in this said everything, everybody would go insane. That's what happens. And you wouldn't, because you have a pure heart where it'll be like a wave that hits you, but it'll push away your ego and it won't spin you in circles and heat you up like friction and make part of you burn off. Other people that aren't going to be balanced in that sense, it's literally, I see it like physics and geometry and a chemical reaction, where a piece of them is the heart's the center. And a piece of them in the mind's going to be attached to the ego, so there's attachment, and it's not going to flow the energy around them, so it's as if they're a shape moving through air or a medium, and instead of having that low friction, low etheric attachment, low karmic attachment or karmic drag, temporally their mind is going to malform as they absorb more information. Instead of going, powering up, they're going to like morph and mutate, and basically it ultimately causes the mind to fracture. If fracturing mind is not an issue to anybody, then fine. But if you look out and you see people cannot handle, I don't even know, you tell them the team, the baseball team or basketball or football team is owned by some of these billionaire groups, and they rig every game in their favor, they go out with a gun and lose it. Okay, so you tell them the entire world is rigged, it's all a show. Everything they devoted their life to is an illusion, a deliberate illusion to take their power away from them. They're going to crap their pants. And so, but the point is, they have to know. So there's a delicate pathway to receiving and delivering this information, and it's dependent on the ability of the individual to, work with it. And so all of that combined is the answer. And then, so it's what information you're talking about and the fact that it's all from direct experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you so much.
I'm going to try and stop, I'm going to cut them down to.
Well, I just want to say, and I really resonate with that because, when someone tries to share information with me and it comes from a book or they're citing a source that's outside of themselves, I don't take that with as much, or I don't give that as much credit, because I know that someone's regurgitating someone else's information, and that's not necessarily my truth. But if I have direct experience, or you're sharing direct experience with me, I give that more validation, because that's what I've witnessed and experienced with my own being, or what someone's sharing from with their experiences. And to me, that sharing is huge. And I'm not saying that there's not things that are written that are credible, but I'm just saying that the direct experience is what really, to me, is what creates that heart-to-heart connection and the resonance.
Right. Well, that's what it's about. It's, if people want to read and things like that, that's fine, but they have to be honest with themselves. You read it, okay? It's an idea somebody else had, that's fine, but don't say like the world is going to end on this date and these things are going to come out and this volcano is going to explode and et cetera, so on. And then this part of our DNA is going to unlock, and I'm going to literally shoot off into the sky. It's like, come on, that's not reasonable. If they say I'm going to have a greater likelihood of knowing what's going on, then well, of course, that's what's going on. And if you're already at a level where you're at peace and empowered, then again, sure, say that. And of course, when people say, what do you think is going to happen? You can just smile at them and be like, the same thing that's been happening is going to be great. That's the whole point. And that's when somebody says that, they're telling the truth. Or when they say it's going to be just pure shit, excuse my language, because both are true. And it's because we're a dynamic species. And that's the point. We have somebody experiencing that. It's like our species is playing both sides of the field for the cosmic show. Some secret groups are doing that to us. We're doing that to the universe. And some people are like living in a cardboard box, and it's just like rough. And that's a prime example. Some people are in that box and they're just like in hell. And some people are in that box smiling and like writing in a notebook, nuts, but enjoying it because you can't keep them down, basically. And those are people who know the secret. And some people are in a big house and they're like doing rituals because they don't know how else to keep their mind focused on the reality of the situation without getting absorbed by these external entities that are literally only power hunting. And if anybody gets power, they go to that person and haunt them in their dreams until they have an avenue into this world, which is how that works to a degree. And so we're the dynamic species, and that's where the power comes from. And again, when people are just, that should kind of be like the vibe I want to emit. Because when people don't acknowledge that and want to like chop that away and say, no, it's just this or it's just that, or basically default to an animalistic, egotistical, eventually vampiric fashion, even if they're feeding on their own suffering, okay, it's like taking a flower and removing all the petals except for one, and then, just having that like in a shadow or something. Like it could be a field of flowers, or it could be like one half daisy in an alleyway. That's our spectrum of energy, and each one, that situation, the field or the alleyway, is the world within each one of us. And so combined, it creates this society altogether. But the magic is that we could be in the alleyway, or some guy can be in the world and he can be in an alleyway, or she, and some she or he can be right next to that person. They can see a meadow and be in a field of flowers. That's the magic. It's in your mind. It's in your being that you can create one or the other, which is the power of the creator. Yeah. If people don't realize that. I had a talk with my friend last night that the animals, the sentient organisms, they don't have the capacity to choose how they're going to program this reality, how they're going to change facets of this universe. The self-aware beings, the humans, they have the power to change through reprogramming and deprogramming their mind, deprogramming because somebody already beat everyone to that and realized, well, if we program how their behavioral patterns, work, we can program the universe. And so you have to deprogram now, or just be born crazy, basically. Crazy in a sense that you're happy even in an alleyway. Mm-hmm. And that means that there's a piece of the creator, most highest power, because what is it? What's the most high? Well, it made everything. All right. Okay. And so we have a piece of that within us, but we then have to accept that and accept self accountability and overcome suffering, fear, and ignorance, because those are the aspects that keep people down. It's the scapegoating and the acceptance of suffering. It's not somebody causing suffering. It's the scapegoating. I have a talk on that. I'm going to probably edit and release soon.
Okay, thank you. And you actually touched on something that will lead into a question that's perfect for where you were speaking. And it gets into what's going on right now with this solar eclipse. So someone says, I would like to know how Og feels about the total solar eclipse happening on August the 21st. I know they're calling it the Lion's Gate, and when I hear the word gate, that typically means something is opening. Of course, everyone is on the fence, some with a very positive outlook, and others saying this will open a portal, allowing Saturn to officially take over Aquarius in this timeline. Or is it just a regular total solar eclipse and everyone is blowing this way out of proportion?
Well, you just touched on all of it right there. If you want to just listen, everybody wants to listen to what you said, because and that's a way of having that basically mind mastery of reality. Just say, is it this? Is it that? Is it this or is it that? Okay, well, it's all, you got it. They're done. Because that's the point, that the programming is right there. You just said it. Every single person's going to go, well, it's this. And the other guy's going to go, that's not that, it's this. And the other guy's going to go, that's not that, it's this, or the lady. And right there, they went, perfect. 40% did this, 20% did that, 10% did that. This one is the most impressing, so they're going to go with that. That's what's going to happen in people's minds because the majority of people will interpret it that way. But the same thing's going to happen across the board. It's just going to be their minds are all going to be programmed differently. Mm-hmm. One thing I can say is that in 2016, or when I came out, I was informed from 2010, which is not the last time there was what you call operation, and these were what's the word? Like basically debriefing, and pre-briefing for what's to come. Is that 2016 was going to be a big break on the celebrity cloning, the corruption, basically a fiasco, which is what it was. And it was largely connected to the elections and things like that. But which is kind of like I see, it's just weird how things are lined up. They're lined up years and years and years in advance. And so, but as far as other things, it was, as far as the corruption with these like this is the debauchery and arrests and people in high places and corruption coming out and people, it's being made more apparent that the three phases of the Unveiling, the first aspects of the corruption, celebrity cloning, and then the second of the advanced technology and things like that, people are catching on. If you look at it, it's catching on. You don't have to have, that's a little bit different. You don't have to have a Secret Service guy like, look at what we're doing to know that this stuff is going on. If you just look and you see it, you realize what you see is not what they're doing there. So you can make the connections. And then people are realizing it's like, they're trying to jail certain people and certain agents are releasing knowledge from like the high levels of government and informing people like this is what's going on. And they're giving them good info because a few weeks later, it's like this pops up and they're either like Superman that just made that change or there are white hats within the government helping. So I was informed that would happen. And I was also informed 2017, the fall would be important. And I said this more or less some in the last year, but more so early this year. You can see in February. So before people were talking about this, and I didn't really even know it was a solar event or a whatever you want to call it, astrological event until a few months ago. I didn't know. But I always based upon disclosure, the fact that people are required to know, and so that's what's going to happen. And as well, the tension in people rises until it's so, the string is so tight you can play it like a guitar, and then all the waves are felt all the way through the population. And when there's one vibration here, it goes all the way to the other side. And that's what's been happening. We've been going through waves of that pretty much for the past couple of years. Specifically, though, it's like it brought the group of people who are trying to figure out what's going on and bring that to the public together. And the people who are doing it egotistically, they're getting tossed off, and it's turning like into a war of words and stuff. Mm-hmm. Of course, everybody's afraid of the keyboard warrior. You got to put your mask on and get your armor going. So that's going to have a big change on the subject. And so as now, what do I think as far as it's basically, it could go either way because of people interpreting it that. But what is like specifically going to happen, and nobody can really say that unless you're a part of these groups that don't have a physical embodiment anchored to this reality, because then you can actually see all of them and you can pick whatever reality you want to merge with. And you can say, I know this is going to happen. I just came from it. It's another future. It's a non-physical dimension I entered in through, which I could technically say. But I think it's going to be used, and it's just like a game where you put the chips as they may, and if the people buckle one way, it's like a guy. We'll use a guy for this example: military pressing or squatting with a bunch of weight. And then the game players are, you got one side, maybe the religionist or the governmental skeptic or something like that, and then you got the other side, which is kind of like a bad example, but the other side with not the New Agers, but something similar to that. And they're both tapping on each side of the weights. And so whoever taps the most, which the tapping, for it to have an effect, he has to turn and look at them. If he doesn't look at them, they're tapping all they want, he'll know it's there, but it won't affect his ability to lift the weight. And so he's squatting down with the weight, but the person who makes the biggest show, he's going to look over at it and it's going to tilt the weights that way. That's like how the society is being played out, and how the programming, which is more or less what news is going to be. You got to feel, from my perspective, I was informed by people who I was in operation with about that's why I believed something was going to happen, because they make universes, they make dimensions. I think there's a fire truck coming now.
That's okay.
And so then, you know, when I see a bunch of people getting around going, oh, it's the Lionsgate, it's this is going to happen. It's like, okay, well, what connection do you have to that? I read it on the internet again. So it's like, I'm not like, you're stupid. I'm just weirded out, because it's like, okay, well, clearly somebody's doing something here, but usually that's what it is. If anybody's in one aspect of it going, this is what's going to happen because this is an opportunity for unveiling, disclosure, empowerment, what you're going to see. And obviously everyone that wants to control people is going to chime in and try and play their card. That's how it works. Any event, that's what it is. Any event is all events all at once. It's a big poker game or Pokemon game or whatever you want to look at it as. Mm-hmm. And so, as far as that's what it is, basically, I kind of explained it. It's going to be attention. It could be nothing. It could literally be some guy has a bowl of spaghetti in the sky and he like throws it across the 50 states. And because it's built up, now it's a world event. Now it's an astrological change. Now it's consciousness change in this civilization. And whatever people tip one way or the other is going to change history forever. It could go basically, I think it'll be moderate because there's been an increase for the past couple of years. But it could also, on an off chance, be a big event, the beginning of the big events where some astrological changes or signs in the sky or something like that results in the control system, the imaginary government that doesn't exist, having to basically confront the people and say, well, this is what's really going on. And if they do, everyone knows they don't exist, everyone that has a direct experience. And if the government ever has to say anything to explain it, because there's 5-10 different groups, really only about 3, vying for power through this imaginary puppet show called the government, if they ever have to stick to one specific story, it falls apart. And the last time they had to do that was 9/11, and that fell apart, of course. Yeah. And it was supposed to. It was a plant. It was a call to awaken. So that's why the government doesn't give explanations for events, because 10 different people will pop up and say different things, and you just have to read between the lines. And so, but it could be, that's basically what's beginning to happen more and more, that people are seeing through what's going on. And it's as if something is bleeding through into this reality, and bleeding probably isn't the best term there, but it's, translating through. And again, it's going to always be dependent on how the people are handling the tension of that mass, vibration, that mass unification through tension, and whether they're converting suffering into knowledge, strength, and power, or whether they're using it as an excuse to throw blame, project, distract, degrade, and use a scapegoat to hide from their own self-accountability. But so basically it's an opportunity for either way, and I think people they're starting to catch on.
Yeah. I'm really loud.
No, but you dropped out.
Okay, is that better? No, you dropped out now. You're quiet.
Sorry, I'm muted. But
okay.
So it might have been, I don't know what it was.
Well, a couple of things came up when you were sharing that for me. And one is, like you said, well, it really depends on what program someone's in, because there's so many different ones. And it's really interesting because in talking about these things, it can be seen as something beautiful, bringing in, a higher consciousness, higher dimensions, higher vibrations. For someone else, it can be satanic. I mean, there's so many different kinds of ways that people, view these eclipses and the numerical aspects and the planetary alignments. But in addition to what you were sharing, you said something, it could be something astrological, which triggered something in me to ask you based on 2 conversations that I've had recently. And that's about a potential solar event. I've talked with 2 people that really feel strongly that there will be a solar flare potentially directed towards Earth, and that it will have a huge impact, not necessarily destroying the planet, but causing a lot of loss of life and a lot of, like the grid going down and things like that. Do you see these events tied to anything like that? These eclipses or anything that would be opening up something like that?
That is a possibility.
Okay.
This video is brought to you by Trade.
There's a video, and this is kind of where it gets weird, where I can see a video or read something and go, oh, that was so-and-so group from so-and-so sector, from so-and-so operation leading into so-and-so project with so-and-so individuals. And I can say, oh, there they go. And I've been briefed on the information. So it's like I can't, in a way, take my own advice, but I can, because if you're not involved directly in these operations, then you're not involved. This is how it works. Which is weird if somebody's like, well, I was involved. Do you know what they do? People know you don't want to be involved. Unless you are perfectly fine with what's going on, and it's literally like rain dancing on your head because nanoparticulate cyber organisms, and you're fine with handling what's going on. If anybody's complaining and they want to anyway, it's just a max tension equals handled wrong, max programming.
Yeah.
But it's by Adapt 2030 timeline for the sun's solar kill shots entering the grand solar minimum. So the information that I was informed of is that we're going into a mini ice age once again. And the groups all specialed up with their either military jumpsuits or $1,000, $2,000 suits or celebrity clothes, it's like fancy clothes. They're the ones that have survived from each solar cycle to solar cycle. They've been here for thousands of years. And so apparently it happens a lot. And it usually, like the last one was what they say wiped out the dinosaurs, but apparently that's a whole different convoluted story that it has to do with a virus. And they weren't dinosaurs. They were closer to lizard people. And it wasn't a desert realm. It was closer to the amount of energy that was pulsating through this realm made it so that everyone was telepathic and so on and so forth. And it was basically a different universe at that point because the energy difference is like a different dimension. So it's not really like saying a big rock fell and hit a dinosaur over the head and he fell over and farted and that's what happened. It's like completely wouldn't even make sense to explain it that way, which is why people explain it that way and they're taught that. But so apparently that happens a lot. That's what I was told. And I have funny stories about all that, about how I basically, I don't want to be prepared, but it's just weird. I've gone through certain situations, and apparently all of a sudden I used to be so bad with cold. I would shiver and wrap myself up within the bed itself, fold the bed around me and go outside. I can literally go into freezing weather now, and as long as I acclimate myself to it, I'm fine, which is so weird. First time ever, and it was after a lot of these events in my life, as far as what they call the awakening, unlock aspects of the DNA basically that are latent. And at first it was a little different as far as being myself, and these aspects of genetic, not alterations, but unlocking. And the only aspect of that is basically the empathy we're keeping the empathy. And so I listened to them, and of course you don't want to listen at first. You're just F you or whatever. And that's a game we play. I'll just put it like that. We got to test each other. They test me, I test them. But the idea is that it's all for the benefit of humanity, because, blaming, scapegoat, blah, 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 empathy is gone. Well, that's just because I wanted to punch somebody in the face at that point in time, and I wanted to get punched in the face. Back to doing what I'm doing, which is what I always did, which is confront the situation wherever it is. Empathy is where it always was. And the point is, it wasn't gone before. It was just overwhelming. And I couldn't, confront the world basically because I saw it as doomed, which, it's that basically I accepted the fact that it's programming. It's my issue, and I just was like, all right, it's my issue. We're all in hell. Which is when we all line up, if you will, on the other side of the veil. Everybody that said it could be anything, I'm going to make it this. They're literally approached and said, okay, you made hell on earth. What do you have to say for yourself? It's not, oh, somebody did this to you and then you were really sad and mad and that's what happened. okay, you made hell on earth. Why? What do you feel about that? That's what happens. And so it's not acceptable in any stance. For instance, me going through what I went through, which if people look into that part, which is a lot of darker information, but again, that's the kindergarten stuff. Everything I've said, if I expose it fractures minds. It was designed by an ancient process to overtake the human mind and enslave a species. So I never revealed 1 ounce of the dark stuff. And people will be prepared slowly for that, because there is before every solar minimum, that's what comes out as somebody tries to wrap up the human genome in a package and say, okay, you're in this box, you're in that box. When everything starts out again, I'm going to unzip that box and start up civilization all over again and rule once again. And we're done with that. That's not going to work this time. We have so much energy built up that we can literally bust out the box halfway through. But it's not. We don't want to do that. We can't go into the box again. We can't go back to sleep for this, post civilization in between period, and then everything starts all over again like a new dawn. And it's really just the same old stuff, the same trick, nothing new under the sun, because these secret groups are running the show the whole time. And it's really that these interdimensional beings are hiding in an altered dimension and then coming back and faking these invasions, which are real invasions, but it's the fact that we're stronger than them if we wake up. They don't have the power to create. They have to program the creators. So it's like Robert Seppier says, or Sepper, who's a great author and researcher, and I was briefed on his information, which is that, I'm not supposed to say it all the time, but I'm sorry, I like a lot of people, and so I'm going to back them and say that technically they're informationally astute and backed by far more than you can see here. Gods with Amnesia in his book is, and I actually haven't read the book, but I've seen snippets and things like that. I actually haven't read basically anything. I get information from my experiences where there's these devices that allow you to basically plug into a civilization's worth of energy and information. And it's just, that's the strange part. When people realize they develop devices that tap into the ether, the magnetic sphere, where all of our consciousness information is downloaded and uploaded to, and you can just bring a little scalar device and tap into that. When people see that, one, they're not going to complain about all this other stuff. A TV, okay, internet is cool. They have an internet of universes, okay, and then as well, they're going to it's going to push away their ego, because it's like you're going to deny all these people that lived and died and so on and so forth. It's a beautiful thing. All denying and stuff like that is going to do is going to create that suffering, and once or if not the majority is cheering because there's this rejoicing because the whole world's brought together again. And there's a few guys that are just like grumpy and so on. Okay, it's going to be that much more obvious that they're making their own hell through that, which is pretty much the theme and topic. But the concepts he presents in the research Robert Seppier does as far as gods with amnesia is pretty much accurate, that the humans have the capacity to create, whereas other beings here don't. And even in that sense, these interdimensional overlords don't have the capacity to create in that sense. They can be as sentient and intelligent as possible, but they still need an organic anchor into this seed realm of Earth to then sprout up the dimensional tree that then brings out the fruit of seed-bearing universes that then they go in and eat and hijack, which is the craziest thing. That you mean we've been producing universes this whole time? Yeah, they've just been popping out of your pores in your brain, and then they've been chewed on by cockroaches. That's all. That's it. What do we do with them? They fall to the ground and bugs eat them. You've ignored it the entire time of your civilization. But it's all recorded. Nothing is lost. It's all a big weird show that we're playing, a big trick where we're playing with ourselves. But before I get too far off a path here, that's all from direct experience, basically. And that's questionable as far as, well, were they tricking you, showing, we were there. The people here who are talking about this, even you included if you have certain memories, were in these other civilizations. The people on Earth that have asked the ability to confront this are from the other civilization. That's the point. And it's just some of us chose to keep our memory, which is the people basically, if you keep your memory, this whole place is managed like a reality TV show. If you keep your memory, the great spirit wants people to know, but there are these in between kind of legal, spiritual, business, and synthetic intelligences that manage the show in junction with these secret groups that act as overlord intermediaries with these interdimensional programmers, and so that those who wake up too much can't be on the surface level civilization. What has happened with these operations is that's been circumvented, or it's been overridden to the point where immortality is what is enabled for the people to know. People don't have to take a shift or a chip or whatever it is and become transhumanistic immortals. But the point is that those who have seen these events are bringing this information to the public, and everyone else can do whatever they want, but they have to know the truth of where they've come from and how they've gotten here. And of course, there's always programming from they own our bodies, or, you know, we're in a matrix that it's like a prison and we have to like leave our bodies behind. Nobody has to do anything. You don't have to do anything. Just be in control. That's the only thing. And you could say you have to do that, but that's the point. Well, how do you do that? You don't do anything. That's the point. You don't do anything. You reserve what your intentions are and your energies are giving out and attaching to and entangling with. It's literally a karmic drag, like a plane going through a wind tunnel with the smoke and seeing how the drag goes around it. It's that for your soul. And when that's balanced, you not ascend. I don't like using that word. You can literally go from point A to point B in a dimensional system and go pass through all the barriers or the veils. And if not, the one person stays in one layer. And if you stay in one layer as a dedicated, kind of like a dedicated server system, a dedicated creator system, then that creator aspect doesn't get fully realized. And that's the point of being here, is to fully realize yourself as a creator, one with the highest and the most high power and compassion and knowledge in the universe, and through free will instead of automation and letting it play out like a movie script, but being the script writer and realizing that oh, that's weird. I'm the camera, I'm the producer, I'm the cast and crew, I'm this, and embodying that and embracing that. And instead of having the view of watching a TV, a little box, or playing this one role, you have the view of being the whole universe. Nobody can describe what that's like. And that's what these ancient civilizations knew. That's what they knew. And that's why some of them disappeared, because once you maximize that, just like on the surface level, as a person gets too much information in the sense that they wake up and figured everything out, unless they handle it right, they're not going to stick around. These civilizations that woke up and became creator gods, they disappeared from the physical plane. They can walk into a higher dimension. They can open gateways. They can see the gateways that are there, which is like what people are looking at this quantum solar gateway. For instance, I don't think it's actually a solar gateway, but it's connected. Looking at that, and so again, there's programming everywhere as far as what has to be done, or whether this one aspect is religious people will have it real bad. It's like, oh, it's basically anything that's not in line with them is the devil, and sometimes it's legitimate as far as but it's usually one-ended. I'm going to reserve from this solar deity, magical, whatever, and I'm not going to get involved in that. And guess what? That was going to be used as a way to access their quantum power and entangle them with a fallen universe and a fallen timeline. But I'm going to go listen to this guy who ritualistic sacrifices kids on TV, where he does that, but he's also on TV because he says a lot of good stuff about God and Christ, stuff like that. And guess what? That's just two sides of the same coin. Really just F it all, and whatever I feel in my heart is I literally walk out into the woods. That's what I feel. That's the path out. And but the trick is tying that, and it's not the trick, the method is tying that to also helping people and not just being some guy, kind of looking like me on a cart or soapbox somewhere just shouting. That's why I'm not shouting. I'm just having a chat. Mm-hmm. So that's, and again, I ramble, but I can go for the entire show with one question and talk about years. And I've only said glimpses of this, that, and the other because I don't want to dig too deep and have that one thing in the memory, because technically I can overload people through that, which is a process as well of doing it and avoiding doing that. But that's a little bit about that, and how ultimately everything changes when the electromagnetic sphere of Earth changes, and we are connected. We have a little sun, then there's a big sun. There's a hidden sun, there's an invisible hidden sun. And when the two link up and synchronize, which was disrupted from these ancient civilizations, these overlords, these programmers, put people in the box, et cetera, so on and so forth, When they're desynced, we're kind of the way we are now as a society. We're literally, this is an automaton society. We're robots. I mean, not me and you, but the way people are, like, if something big happened and it wasn't like the news was like, don't do anything, don't care. They're just not going to care. They're going to drive their cars, and as long as nothing's disrupted and just like, oh, this is weird. Okay, that's that. They're not going to think. They're not going to do anything different. And it's not to say that's all it is, because the bigger the thing that happens, the more likely they are to break up that trance, that encasement of crystalline imprisonment around their consciousness, which controls their belief system. But that's the whole point. But it's because it's literally like a firewall between their mind and the cosmic mind, which again can go into programming as far as transhumanistic hive technology, so on and so forth. But there is a natural, soul-based hive. A soul monad and a soul group is literally just an organic hive. It's made out of soul energy and the shared empathy that's connecting through the bloodline. Now, if you do that, and it's because everybody's plugged into this supercomputer that dominates, okay, well, that's a different thing, but it's the same concept, just different execution or application. But in that sense, those events, okay, it's like a computer system. You got the layer of events of Jerry, Sue, and Joe, and they have user level rights. Then you got the events of the administrators, which are the people we can't see, hidden rulers, and they have a little bit more power. Then you have, and those are actually sub-administrators or management team. Then you have administrative or beyond programmer levels. You have programmers. Then you have basically at the top you have administrator levels most high. No one in a physical body has access to that. You have to be outside the system to get to the keyboard that runs that stuff. And to get out, you have to kind of shed your ego. It's a perfect system. The idea is those level right user access level. I'm mixing up words from IT. I can't think of the word. Access rights. That level changes when one thing changes. It changes everything. When the user level, when one thing changes from them, okay, they have a different flavor sandwich now in their lunchbox or something. They're drinking a different flavor drink. You change one level of programming of a user level, their pants switch from khakis to gym shorts or something. Administrative level, you change something, it's a different civilization. Everybody's IQ or intelligence increases, which is a falsification of IQ. It's no such thing as an IQ test or IQ. You change something, and the DNA changes, and now people have a wider spectrum of memory, and they can see, the barrier between dimensions goes like that. And now there's a gap here, but all this that was blocked out, it's like they remember up to that point. Before they remembered up here, all this is black. Now they have this point, and there's a little gap, but they remember, oh yeah, this happened, and we led up to that in this civilization. Those level access rights, I can't think of the organized word for that phrase, are usually events that in early civilizations, it was seen as something happening to this universe. A dragon came through the sky and made the spray of electromagnetic sprites that lit up the sky, and the magnetic field altered, and everybody's minds changed. And some people's minds went blank, and they literally dropped down. I was like, what are we again? How do I do this? What is a body? And this is literally like a reset. And some people withheld through that and awakened, and it's indescribable. But when those begin to happen, it's in sync with the changes that we're going through on this level down here. And it's like a big orchestra, a big, huge organism interacting with itself. And it's basically a ride that we have to go along with. And, we have to work together, because usually people always kind of go in and out of the physical plane. But there's an increased chance for tension and loss of life, basically, when the infrastructure that we use is based upon the same user level rights being a mandatory restriction at all times, and that to the point where if a few of those rights get shifted, the infrastructure collapses. Okay, it means people don't know how to bring themselves the stuff that keeps things going with the infrastructure. If everything is shipped in oil, and it's all basically destructive. But those things must end, because there's a new administrator coming through now, where it's back to a peaceful place, whatever. So we have to think about all those aspects, because the greatest thing ever, and also the most horrifying thing ever as well, the unveiling of the truth. So that's a little bit of a ramble on that, and it gets really weird where these different societies recorded these changes and saw how it wipes memory and then restores it across thousands of years.
Well, there's actually, you brought some things up that have made me want to ask you some other questions outside of what I have here. And you're going to do that occasionally, where it brings something up that I feel like we need to go a little bit more in depth with. One of the things you were, saying is like, and some of us have memories. And yes, that's why I'm here doing this, because I do have memories. And what's become very clear to me is what I would consider something important for everyone right now is that remembrance. So it is those memories of previous, where I am in other dimensions or previous incarnations, however someone wants to term it. That's why I'm sharing and asking the questions that I'm asking. There's something else that the way that you express about different beings, and you say interdimensional beings, which I really agree with that, versus like the extraterrestrial, because in my personal opinion, from what I've experienced and what I've seen, is that we're all, if you want to say extraterrestrial, we're all extraterrestrial or anti-dimensional beings. So when someone says, well, there's the reptilians and there's the grays and then there's the, the bird people and this people, whatever. What is the difference between, because you always make that clarification, what is the difference between using interdimensionals and extraterrestrials? Is extraterrestrials tied to an agenda?
Yeah, shout out to Bird Person, Rick and Morty. I don't know if you've seen that. Rick and Morty just put a good, they're starting their season 3, and yeah, I'll do a couple write-ups. I won't do too deeply into that, but
okay.
They're getting real psychological with it, and it is hilariously, like, it's going to happen to everybody. Like, what they're doing in the show and, like, these kooky ways is going to happen to the world, and everybody's going to be like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? It's going to wake up. So it's all a program, basically. I'm going to be the crazy guy to come out here and say that. It's largely a program. Look at the progenitor video that I did, where basically there's it's a program, but it's a real system, because everything outside of this dimension becomes a virtual interface that one's consciousness level determines the amount and the level of information they receive. Meaning, when you go to bed, you're into a virtual interface. That's how it works. Outside the physical, when you right now, and you have a word in your mind that you hold, you're entering a virtual interface. It's your mind. That's how it works. It's very simple, but there's a lot of restrictions on what people can and can't think. And the inability to accept that is just another religious aspect, where people want to say, well, no, this is real. This is real life. Okay, well, keep saying that and see how far that gets you. Essentially, you need the keys of immortality to keep saying that forever. And to do that, you have to understand that part of it is virtual. And that's where the part of the key set is, in your mind, in a non-physical realm. And that's also where the primary essence of the person is. The spiritual and soul aspect is non-physical. You can't scoop it up and do anything with it that way. You can electromagnetically, polarize it and get it to stick to a electromagnetic sheet net of energy, but that's not physical. The device is physical. And so it's a weird way of describing how it works, but basically, I'll try and say it simply. It's like a loop, and we're in the center. Everything on the far end is virtual. So if you are here and you project out in the far future what's going to happen, and you look, and you can look with devices, you'll see a universe. You'll see a future time. You'll see it's really there. These devices can look. Your mind, the point is, all these devices do is recreate a brain. They just do what a brain does. Oh, we made a time machine. What'd you do? We made a fake brain that we can just guide it to do whatever we want. All right, well, so what does that mean? The brain's a time machine. And it's really the mind and the interface, and the brain kind of is the control panel, which has somebody smashed it with an axe. So it's like, oh, half of it's broken up and the buttons don't work. And there's like buttons that are like, press me, and it's like it just breaks the whole system. They're like implanted, falsified programs. And so the idea is that there's a time vortex that funnels into the system. whenever you have a vortex, you have like an independent system that enables one to access multiple planes simultaneously. A vortex cuts through dimensional barriers, basically. If you have fabric of space and time, which is outdated and almost nonsensical, and you twirl it, you get a shift where it goes somewhere. If you do it just right, so that a 0-point fractal convergence fields opens up, kind of like Dan Winter describes, you get an entryway in and out of this dimension. You get a portal. And our heart and mind creates one of those automatically. But there can't be a bunch of trash swirling around the whirlpool, because then nothing works. And again, it's not physical. So the trash is frequencies that's just gunked up. It's like a screen. Where what's on the screen? Well, technically it's physical stuff, but what's the interaction? Well, it's light passing through a distorted mirror screen and giving negative feedback. It's giving distorted information. So it's not like, well, pick up the information and throw it over your shoulder. Well, it's not physical. It's information. It's data that's being distorted. And so it's confusing, but that's kind of how it works. And so it's really weird. But basically, when you look and say you go into a state and you do it yourself or use a device, the reality that you see that is not here now, it's virtual. It can be as real to the point where you throw 1,000 die up in the air and you use a device or you use your mind to look and see the closest example you can get to what's actually going to happen. And 99% of all the die or the dice are 1,000 dice are you predict fully. Okay, and you get them all, 99%. One, that's not the absolute surety, because something could still happen between there and now that changes the outcome, especially if somebody knows your prediction. Because if they know it, then they didn't know it when you predicted it. That's going to instantly alter it, which is how this world is being altered through these predictions and these models, to the point where now we're 3 layers deep, where it's nobody knows. Okay, we told people. Okay, well, now we know that people know because somebody told people. So then we're going to add more stuff and change the prediction a second time over. Okay, well, now somebody did that. We're going to do that because they did that. And then we're going to do this. And now we're going to change it 3 times over, so that we know that people know. Now we're going to tell them not just that there's a new knowing, but that we know that they know. So now people know that we know that they know that we know that we changed the situation in a matrix of predictions. And they use that to get, and now it's a game. Unless you've got a supercomputer and a team of encryption specialists and experts, linguistic experts, you can make a guess. Other than that, these teams of people and these supercomputers are required to know anything in this world of who's doing what and how it's playing out, because it's multiple matrices. Basically, it's literally war of the matrices, war of the worlds, if you will. Mm-hmm. And as well, they play nice, because it'll fracture the timeline if it gets too stressed. And then at that point, once that happens, no one knows. And that happened a year ago. And it's actually right now, no one knows. Once, that's also, so here's what I was told, just to branch off right here. And I'm going to try and wrap up the progenitor aspect. You'll have to watch the video. It's a time loop. Whatever you go in creates the future. Ultimately, the same future is created when you have a 99% spread of all the possible actions. And the majority of what happens is that there are other beings involved. These beings never are physical. They're imaginative access points of interdimensional entities that exist in the imagination, the subconscious of the human, and they reflect, let me write something down real quick before I forget. And so they reflect what we hold within us. So the idea is that you have a day that somebody lives, and you have then 1 million different versions of that day. What's going to happen? Well, eventually the same patterns are going to be drawn out, where somebody's going to, for one, most likely the person is going to go to the bathroom at least a few times that day, unless they don't eat or drink anything. That's usually part of what people do. And again, at the bottom of the pyramid, you get the base level stuff that is connected to the lower half of the body, the lower half of the mind, the unconscious, the automation, the necessity to secure survival in a physical place. Basically, the not so glamorous stuff, but it's still necessary. That's actually part of the Rick and Morty episode, the episode 3, Pickle Rick, at the end, where they talk about it. This part of interest, I'll say an excerpt from that, which is that, the lady commended Rick, the scientist, because he's extremely intelligent, but she said, I have to say, it seems like you're your own worst enemy, because with all of your intelligence, it seems like you're literally like vegetating yourself through your own mind, because it's a gift and a curse. and it basically alienates you from the rest of the world, and it makes it so that you don't want to acknowledge what's happening because you have the choice to change because you're the most intelligent, yet the stuff you get yourself into is literally like nobody in the world would ever want to go through those things. And in that sense, and then you don't want to come to like therapy, or you don't want to do basically mundane things. You don't want to be a normal and die and be forgotten. And this is like obviously the most brilliant thing you could say on a TV show. It's definitely not a children's TV show, by the way. And she says, it's, you know, why I would be bored out of my mind, just like you are here, in the same sense that I am brushing my teeth and wiping my ass, because that's the idea about maintenance or repairing and healing. I think it was that it's not glamorous and it's not an adventure, and you can't, there's no way to do it so wrong, or no way to mess it up or something like that, that you might die, that it might turn into this, you know, immaculate adventure of time and space because you washed your hair the wrong way or something like that. It's just something that you have to do, and it's essentially work. And the beautiful thing about that is we all have the choice. This is like a prophetic, brilliant, you know, monologue lady gave. We all have a choice. That's the beautiful thing, to live one way or the other. And some people don't have a problem with that. They're okay. And some people would rather die than doing the mundane things and blending into this world, and in their sense becoming forgotten to who they view themselves as in this higher aspect, which is, I didn't say it perfectly, but it's the, you know, the awakened one has both of the aspects merged into one complete pyramid, if you will, to use an occultic symbol. It's just, oh, it's the pyramids are evil. It's like, okay, well, guess what? They're in your head if that's what people are thinking. He mentioned a pyramid, or there's a pyramid on somebody's.
I'm evil.
So, I mean, you really got to think about that, like a shape. Come on now. A shape is, well, it's, I'll just say it, part of what the dark faction does, and it's not really like the dark faction doesn't even do this, it's just the smart people do this, is what is the answer? Here's the answer. Okay, we'll just put some red around it and then make like a little blood drip and then give it fangs and stuff. And it's like everybody's like, oh, the answer, it's evil. Don't know that. Well, good. Now they rule everything because you called the truth evil. And so, and again, that's not the dark faction, because that's not bad. They're just giving you the option to not want to know the truth. The dark faction doesn't give you the option. That's the whole point. They just straight up put it there and lock it down. And so that's the idea that, how did I get into that?
Well, you were supposed to tell me if when we talk about interdimensionals.
I have that in my head.
And extraterrestrials, like, so are you?
It was the spread of information that represents your duties throughout a single day that is repeated 1,000 times, basically in 1,000 different timelines or universes. Eventually, you get a pyramid of information of all the stuff that is mundane and must be done. And it can be done a different way, but it's the same stuff. And then as you go up, you get more and more personalized aspects that are not based upon automation. You know, if you go to the bathroom, guess what? You're not doing it too many different ways that it like separates you from everyone else in the world. Unless you do, if you do, guess what? It's probably weird and it's not going to be helpful. You know, you're going on top of a building or something. Okay, that's not the thing you want to like represent yourself by. It's just the mundane stuff that is connected to the physical realm of the body. That's automation. More you go higher up the pyramid, you get to this awakened, non-automated aspect that whatever happens there, nobody can make you do it. Nobody can make your eyes open up. Okay, you have to do it. That's the point. And whatever you do there is you. If it's by someone else, it's down a layer because it'll come out that way. It'll. That's a bad phraseology. It'll considering the context of the other aspects of the situation, it will, you know, it won't be the full exemplification of who that person is non-physically, of a spiritual aspect of their mind. And so in that sense, this timeline, this universe is one of those. And the base level repeating frequencies and patterns are these situations where cycles of civilization go up and down. And in between the troughs of the wave, there are these pseudo interdimensional contact points. These are the fake gods that come through. And the point is, they're holographic, interdimensional, virtual reality entities. They don't have physical forms. They can only exist in the ether of the magnetosphere and our own minds. And they nest inside the DNA of an individual as a fake third DNA strand, which is actually a parasite. It's like a hijacker. The whole story of the devil trying to ride on the backs of the good-hearted to gain way into heaven is that parasite infecting DNA to try and gain access to the higher dimensional layer of the universe and escape the abyss of the void of the physical dimension, because it either lost its form or never had one. And that's where we get this progenitor aspect of who came first, who's the creator, did somebody modify, did somebody insert themselves, and it's all of the above. And originally, it's the one who has the awakened aspect. And I don't want to point to the third eye or anything like that. It's just an idea, because the third eye could be a form of programming in itself. I've explained this part of that in the previous Brazilian interviews with Florescer da Consciência and the Radio Remix. Mm-hmm. So look into those. The end of I think the second one talked about that, which is real, where there's programming on both sides to say, this is programming, it's to help you. This is programming, it's to not help you. It's like, well, now you got it. All they're doing is saying, choose. What's the answer? Pick it, whatever you want. But we're also going to say this, and that. And then if the person's on the lower vibration, they're going to say, oh, they're saying all this stuff. I don't know how to choose. Why? Because they're saying stuff. Okay, well, what does that mean? So the whole point is that you have to choose, but they're going to encourage you to not choose. And in that way, kick out a majority of the population who's not willing to become self-accountable or take accountability, or maybe never was. That's where things get real weird. Are some people never capable of waking up? Were they never ever awake? Were these beings at once physical? Was it always virtual? And it's just an aspect of our mind that we invented in previous civilizations, because some people said, there's gods. Oh, look at my robe and my cape. We talked to the gods, and they performed these rituals and made the smoke go up, and then basically conjure up these entities out of the subconscious of the mind of people. And in doing that, in this cycle of an egg, which is really a sine wave, they pulled in from the ether these imaginative forces, which when combined with the power of the people, okay, just like celebrities or something like that, manifest actual beings that are no more real than a spooky blob monster in one of your nightmares. But when the merging of the holographic and the physical dimension get closer to closer together, you can actually see mass events of these beings, and those are these apocalyptic or previously Armageddon events where our timelines kind of merge with these alternate realities, and where we go there basically plans the next cycle over. So that's kind of the gist of it. Look at the progenitor experience, that it's not physical. I'm going to continue explaining because it goes on. But it's not physical, but it's the basis for the mind in existence, in the universe here. And the idea is that we kind of switch places with them.
Well, that'll be really good for you to go into in depth, because for, like I could personally can say that I've had experiences with different beings, and what I've become aware of is when I was really deep into programming, I was having all kinds of experiences with these different types of beings, whether it was the one trying to present himself as the Christ figure, or whether it was a reptilian. And what I've observed now that I have become more aware of myself and more balanced within myself, I don't have these interactions anymore. Now I have more memories of who I am, but I'm not having these beings that are presenting themselves to me. So if I'm hearing you correctly, understanding you correctly, they are beings that are projections that we basically have created from our own minds, that are real. That would make them kind of an aspect of ourself, I guess, really interdimensionally.
That's what it is.
Okay.
It's explaining it is so much more weird, but that's the idea, that they are aspects of our own imagination. I say what I just wrote down, so you did it to me now. They're aspects of our own unconscious, our own tendencies and unconscious natures. And in that sense, though, the weirdness is that aspect of the existence is a kind of virtual reality It's a holographic, nature. And outside of the physical dimension, everything's a holographic virtual reality nature. And our own mind is an interface to a non-physical holographic virtual reality nature. So in that sense, they're just as real as we are. But the idea is we're the anchor, we're the canvas in this world, that if we change the colors up that we use, so there's no more this frequency, there's no more that either. There's no reflective aspect. There's no dimensional prism reflection, refraction quality that sprays out of the cosmic or the quantum field of every individual's mind to create these cosmic planes that then are inhabited by these entities. The idea is that there's an infection, there's a bunch of parasitic entities in that field now, and they're filtering through this reality through us, which is, it's the strangest dance of meaning and like confusion and almost like a ridicule of how this works, because we're the ones that create them, but we're creating the things that enslave us, and it's all mental. But basically, it's apparently there's no laws against that if you create a being through your imagination that's in your mind, intelligent enough to know what's going on, and they go and then control you to keep that cycle going, that they could create these insertion points where every time there's a low cycle, they insert themselves and have these nightmare type experiences that then go on to fund the next rung of history of civilizations that spread out from that, where they're secretly ruling from behind the curtain under the surface of Earth in the subconscious mind of the people, to the point where the changes in the pineal, pituitary, hippocampus, amygdala, in the neocortex, in the spine, the brainstem, certain organ systems, they reflect these myths of these beings altering things in these down cycles of history where there's an invasion. And in reality, they go back in the devices and see there's no invasion. But then now look into that's the mind of the Earth, or the mind of the magnetosphere. Then look into the minds of people. Everybody has memories of an invasion. They're inserted memories that these parasites developed as a method of entraining realities through consciousness and creating realities through consciousness entrainment. They become they're like magical parasites. They're basically, I'm just going to go back to Rick and Morty. The episode with the parasites that go into their minds, and this is obviously old, but these are people who have studied certain arts and certain things, and most often they probably just had a good dream, probably a nightmare or something like that would be perfect in a cartoon or something like that. And then again, well, where do you think that's from? It's reality. What we can't see is a reality, although it's a different form of it. And again, it's just one sprouts to create the other, that then sprouts. The imagination sprouts, creates the physical, manifests that then what we do here sprouts or creates what's going to happen in our imaginative realm. Again, that's the cycle. One's physical, one's imagination, physical imagination. And that's the cycle, the loop that's been going, that we have to change. And those parasite things infect. It's funny, they jumped on his craft as he jumped through a time barrier, which is what happened. The electrogravity devices create a form of vortex, at least the earlier ones. The vortex creates a portal way. The portal way, if unprotected, apparently invites in a bunch of bugs from the interdimensional spectrum. And that shouldn't be there in the first place, but they were there in the future, so they went back to the past. It doesn't make sense, but that loop, once you do one complete loop, you have access to every other loop. Once you have one complete day in that spectrum of 1,000 days, you can hop to any day and capture the information of anyone by saying, they did this that day, okay, recreate that motion, boom, now you're in 3 different days at once. Because the mind of the individual that can access those fields, either through technology or because they're an interdimensional entity, doesn't have the physical restrictions that a physical body does. And if your mind can do it, and you have a physical body and you don't need tech, well, then you can jump on your own. You can literally just jump to different dimensions mentally, and that's like a sacred art and stuff like that. And it's been protected. That's part of what's going to be unveiled. What is happening? What is going to come about? Well, imagine if they made an announcement. You can jump through time. You can literally imagine a place and go there, and it'll work. And that's real weird. I'm waiting for can you hear the airplane?
No, it was just so funny when you said jump through time, your whole voice got distorted. It was just hilarious.
Oh, it sounded like a robot or something. DJ bot.
But I want to say something too in this, because when I first heard this, my husband would share this kind of stuff with me when I was really not ready to hear it. And I would be so pissed off because I was like, no, this is not true. And it was hard for me to accept because I was becoming deprogrammed from a lot of things at that point. And, but when it's offensive for someone to hear this is all in your mind, if you really have the concept that you are a creator and that you're creating your reality, then for this to be in your mind is not an attack of your life or your journey or what you've experienced. The fact that you are experiencing it is the journey. So for me now, when people are describing, I had this encounter with this being, I honestly don't get caught up in why you feel like you're having this encounter, whether you think it's someone outside of yourself or if it's your own creation. To me, it's all experience based. So it doesn't have to be offensive to me for someone to tell me that, well, it's all happening in your mind. If I am the author, the creator, the actor, the observer of my reality, then I am creating all of it. So I don't see where there could be a contradiction in the two.
Yeah, don't say that to some of the secret groups. They'll take it as a compliment and rejoice, basically. If somebody's trying to insult somebody and say it's all in your mind, they'll be like, oh my gosh, thank you. I've been trying for years to get this to work right. And again, you don't really have to try it. That's the whole point. We're doing that automatically. We're in that cycle, that loop automatically. That's how you get here. You go through this imaginative cycle of becoming. That's how everybody got here. There's no doorway, and there is, but that's the first and then the last. Everything between them is dreaming. We're a civilization dreaming. Gods with amnesia. And this parasites things in the cartoon, they go into the mind from the infecting of the craft, which happens with apparently an actual electrogravitic craft. But in the cartoon, it happened, and it was just like they got stuck there. And they infect the mind and make the person think that they were always there, that they were a part of the family, and that now there's a funny uncle so-and-so or something like that. And the more and more iterations it goes of, we caught that one. Oh, another one popped up. Oh, we caught that one. The further generations they are removed from the original progenitor parasite alien demon thing, the more outrageous it is. It's no longer King Awatu. It's a big looking headed alien thing that carries a scepter and has a cape now all of a sudden. And everybody's like, was that guy always there? It's like, yeah, he rules everything. He loves us, but we have to sacrifice beings for him, and he'll eat us if we don't, although he can't actually do that because he turns into mist if you try and contact him or something. Well, are you sure that's what we're supposed to be doing here? Which is, again, why it's like, oh my gosh, this is the craziest test or dream, because if you don't hang on to your britches, your bearings here, it's going to make everybody go crazy. And as well, if you're into that kind of thing, not being overlorded by a sacrificial demon thing, but standing up and being alive, okay, well, that's just going to turn you on. And oh my gosh, imagine the power if we can overcome these parasites, and even then, well, we already have the power. For that to be possible, then that means, well, why aren't they going their own place to do what they do? Because they need people. They need people to do it. That's the whole point. It's like a bully or something. Well, you're so cool and special, leave me alone. Go walk away. No, I can't, because it sucks for it to be you. That's the whole point. Not you, but and so the idea is crazy. But that's the weird thing about the iterations is that it's gone on so long. They put themselves into position to represent themselves as the progenitors, as the ones who brought humanity about, ones who created humans. Okay, do it again. Go create a playground you can go leave, have fun in. No, they can't, because they need an earth realm to trickle down their energy to and put these seed level programming in that then manifest over time into a civilization that supports their desires and their debauchery and all the stuff that we see happening now. So the idea is there's a group of people that have been shown these things and that are strong enough to giggle and say, wow, that's cute. Well, what are we going to do now? What do you want to do? And where everyone else is like, oh, hail the big-headed thing. Give me the babies quick. Or, we can't do this. It's insane. Blah, blah. All right, well, have fun with your box, and we'll clean it up so that when you wake up again, you don't have to deal with this. Because the whole point is they come out, put people in boxes, and then set up everything so that when it starts again, because it's high and low cycles of energy, that it stems people from waking up and realizing that they actually, whatever people think is what happens. And so it's a weird situation. But that's the gist of the interdimensional parasite situation, where we're multiple cycles in, to the point where there's each cycle, it's its own timeline, where it's literally it cycles, and instead of like 1, 2, 3, it stretches out like a spring now. And so each one is its own iteration of reality, and what happens in between is what influences our minds. Literally, like, we go down at night and sleep and then come back up as a civilization, and whatever we dream of there is what manifests in the civilization, because they're master programmers, and some people kind of wanted power and desire and stuff like that. They built up this pathway for these mental beings that are manifested only through the unchecked desires of humanity, that they built up a groove where now it's like a broken record, and people have to overcome that tendency to submit, which is how that works. And then as far as, well, so there's just nightmare things on the other side. Well, no, that's the whole point. Just whatever you want. So then, say out of the 1,000 days that somebody's cycle is represented, say one person, instead of just doing the same thing over and over again, and that's the other thing, you do the same thing over and over again, it's the lower half of the pyramid. If you do the same thing every day, it means there's basically just like pooping and eating and sleeping, and that's animal nature. Desire, rage, basically that's it, desire and rage. But it splits up between sleep, food, sex, and fighting. That's it. And there's the base panorama of qualities of experience. Literally, you can map it out as a program, and it's like, I only need 4 lines of code. That's it. They just repeat at different angles and variations. And so the point is, then, if you do something different each day, oh, how do you do that? Well, you got to add more information. How do you get new complexity out of the same information? You can't. You can recombine it a bunch of different ways, but eventually you run out of combinations. So you have to add information. So then, to do something different, not just every 5 days, just like civilization or a previous run of history, every 100 years or every whatever, to do something different the most maximal amount of ways that it can be done in that stretch of 1,000 days, that person must organize and maximize and utilize every different facet of their ability, from the mental to the most high, the physical to the most high mental, and then spiritual capacity. When that occurs and every possibility is maximized, it means all the gears, if you will, all the aspects or facets of themselves, their self, is activated, and there's nothing being left out. When that happens, for instance, a person is just worshiping debauchery and just the darkest stuff. Well, they manifest these interdimensional parasites. So the person then goes to the Most High, and day 20 comes around, and they have this like awakening experience. Day 50 comes around, it goes even higher than last time. Day 250, and they have like a cosmic experience where like light literally beams out and they can manifest things. By day 900 to 1,000, they're literally walking through the walls from one day to the next, and it's like, now at day 900, there's 900 people sitting there going, it's a council of yous, a council of Ricks. I'm telling you, everything Rick and Morty is from soft disclosure. You're in an infinite realm based upon multiple infinite versions of yourself. And it's finite, but it's virtually infinite. And that's where it comes from. Everything outside of here, if you look 10 seconds in the future, that's a virtual moment. It's being split into this reality by, it's like a processor system. And they want to kind of, they have to reset that processor because those parasites attach themselves into the motherboard. But the idea is that the one who awakens basically breaks all the bounds, the barriers of the possibilities that are defined by the restrictions from one system to the next, and those are physical restrictions, which is also a mental restriction, to the point where now your mind, the guy of day 900 that sees it all because they've maximized their complexity, well, the mind and possibly the physical embodiment, day 200, is there with him. And he's like this omni mind where all of a sudden, once he makes that 900, he sees everything. All of a sudden, the him that was at day 200 is getting these experiences. And at 900, he goes, that's why I had a vision at day 200 of seeing day 900. And you begin to expand beyond the boundaries. When that happens, you create a higher dimensional version of you that always existed and is the one that stepped down in the dimensions to create who you are here and now. And you become the creator. And it's the most beautiful thing because nothing can stop that. And when you do that, it's all love. It's literally, you're the child of yourself, and it's in an internal aspect, eternal and internal, and you don't have to basically do weird stuff. And that's how it works, because it's a pure, basically the pure, weird, eternal. Okay, mathematically, it means there's more energy through a synergy with you and yourself than there is with you and the rest of the universe. Meaning the entire, you hold, when you combine with all of the versions of you, more energy than the entire universe holds when it combines with all the entire universes of energy. Meaning you become literally more powerful than the complete universe in itself. It's because your spirit, when it is part of your awakened in your body, instead of just that animalistic mind taking all the energy, because it's very low efficiency. It's like a very cheap wire being used for the body to handle and running the show. Okay, when the information is coming non-locally from the source realm of where you basically come from, and your imaginative frequency of this, multiverse, that produces energy like it's free energy, like it comes from outside of the dimension, this universe, because you're a spirit, your soul is on the border between the universe and the in and out, and the spirit is beyond this universe. It's a source of information and more so energy, to the point where when that then becomes integrated to who you are, you don't rely on the physical laws to get your energy, to get your decisions, to get your boundaries. You can break all boundaries. You can do whatever you want. And so that the magic is literally like a scientist or a mathematician doing an equation and figuring out the answer is always wrong because it gets more than the one side of the equation, gives more than the other side. And that's impossible. It's not supposed to happen that way. But what if you figured out a language where it's inherently the only possible outcome? That's crazy. But the point is, that's reality, and it always works in your favor, because the only way to get that actually, without having to steal energy from somebody else and go through this ritual process or feeding these entities, is by accepting self-responsibility and waking yourself up, expanding knowledge, and maximizing the free will over automation. And that's by doing whatever you can do that's different from this pattern, this algorithm, this matrix of possibilities from like a spectrum of 1,000 days, and making it change in this difference of potentiality. And what you get is this ebbing and flowing of potential change, and then eventually it goes up and up, and you get this crescendo of the most highest amount possibly. And once you reach that, it spreads that information throughout the entirety, forwards and backwards in time, and it's as if it was always there, and it transcends, and you realize that you were always the non-physical thing that was creating you from this other side, and that higher dimensional version of yourself, God, or the Most High, or your guardian angels, or your shadow mixed with your conscious to create the super conscious self, is who you always were and always have been. And you have the experience, to put it in layman's terms, which is not really layman's, but it's more metaphysically or metaphorically viable, is that all of a sudden you realize you're the cast, crew, producer, director, each actor, and the camera in the stage. You're literally, maybe not the stage, because right now we're in this kind of convoluted stage where the motherboard has been kind of hijacked, but it's still us, because we're being hijacked by these beings, which is iffy, way to describe it. But the idea is that you become that, and the power of that is literally like, well, if you're everything, then where's the distinction of when you aren't? There is none. So then death, fear, ignorance, loss, okay, is dissolved, and everything is life, and everything is gain at that point. Winning the lottery pales in comparison to realizing that you are that which is. Okay, you could win all the lotteries, you can gain you can become overlord of every universe. The energy of the spirit and the body combined and awakened is more powerful than all physical things. Okay, and that's also meaning that it's yours. You can't really give it to another person and say, here's my spirit, now be who you are. It doesn't work that way, which is why it's this inner journey and aspect. But that's what's hijacked by these beings. But the other aspect of that, these now an extra dimensional instead of interdimensional, where it's just kind of splicing through realities, an extra dimensional, meaning as soon as you get to one body of information, one level of potentiality, well, now that you've maximized that, it means you scooted the limit up. The ceiling's higher, now you can go higher. It's another way to see it is that you have a three-dimensional space and a configuration. In order for you to see this three-dimensional space and go, this is what I'm observing, your mind must be in a four-dimensional space. For you to now see, well, I have a mind to see this, and that exists in a abstraction parallel or maybe even perpendicular to the three-dimensional space that I'm on an abstraction layer mentally and seeing time. To see that and to know that, you have to be in a 5D space. To then see, well, my intentions are interacting through time to create these multiple timelines that are in a higher space. Okay, you have to be in a 6D space to see higher space, meaning you never end. You continue to build, and you literally, computers eventually fail to maximize that. It's a equilibrium. You have computers now faster than what we do consciously. The subconscious, if you have that, still faster than the computer. And it goes and goes and goes until we think we're at the highest level in these supercomputers that can move quantum interdimensionally throughout time and space and project entire universes are, maximal. But as you begin to basically maximize your ability, which is, it's a natural occurrence to know. It's literally just to know. It gets to the point where, again, it's more powerful than an entire universe. And that's when these supercomputers, these quantum supercomputers, fail to do that. And it's hard to describe, 6D, 7D, how that would work, multiple timelines, being a conscious and aware of, because you right now are in one moment of one timeline and you have access in a kind of a deviated form of memory, which is largely programmed of possibilities that related to who you are and how you got here, and you can project other timelines of how it could be or what it might have been, and that develops when you're about 12 years old. And there's a whole spectrum of development from the beginning of childhood, infancy, detachment, stuff like that. Talk about in the 3 phases of the Unveiling cloning stations in the woods talk I gave. It's all psychological. Stemming that knowledge stems the ability to do that. But the idea is that we can't determine what 6 or 7D, loose term here, it's like a metaphysical term, but apparently it's actually accurate. That's what the scientists told me. Like, no, we made fun of everybody so that nobody figured it out too soon, because, well, imagine if it's like, I can do everything. Everything's sprayed. Okay, well, that you spray that out into reality, and that's what these parasite things want. But we can't imagine from this view what it's like. It's just pure imagination or pure information and knowledge and knowingness, to the point where there's more mind and knowingness than there is body. If something falls on my hands right now, it's going to hurt. If the timeline alters, it's not going to hurt as much as if somebody hit me in the hand, or like a piece of the ceiling fell on my, an arm and broke my arm or something. In that avenue, it would be more equivalent to say, if the timeline altered, that would hurt more than a broken arm. Doesn't make sense, but the idea is that instead of going, I got to fix my arm, wrap it up, we could literally go, well, I'm going to go to a universe where that didn't happen now, and we'd have that capacity. Doesn't really make sense from this layer, but it's literally like infinite power, and that is the higher being. It's not an AT, it's not an interdimensional, it's the most high extra-dimensional aspect of consciousness.
Well, since you brought up timelines, it's a good time for me to ask you about that. When it comes to these timelines, what is the basic principles, theories, premises of the timelines in correlation to where we are now, and how we experience those?
Just as I said it, you tie it up through geometry.
Okay.
You got 3.5, which is our 3-dimensional thing. A cube dancing is 3.5 dimensions, and a dumb cube. We're the dumb cube now. We know there's something happened back then. We know there's something going to happen, but we don't know what. It's like we're blinded. We got blinders on. If we were truly visible in the 4th dimension, where people say, well, and then 3 dimensions of space, and then 1 of time. So we're like really 4-dimensional beings. Okay, what's going to happen? I don't know. I have no ability to know. Okay, so you don't really, you're in time, but it's like one eye's kind of half open, looking around, and then going back to sleep. We don't really, our time aspect, our time body, our long body, I think the Tibetans and the Indians talk about that, which is basically that, okay, so the cycle of what you do in the here and now, it's reversed from when you look at the long and short body. We have the lower aspect of the pyramid, because all that is the same. It's just going to keep going. It's predictable. That's the short body. Every few hours, it's going to happen. It's going to keep happening. The cycles are going to keep going. Every 3 weeks, you have a pinnacle experience, and you get this massive awakening. And then it happens again in a shorter interval. Say it happens at first at 10 years. Okay, then it takes 2 years or 5 years to have another awakening. And 10 and 5, these are like broken languages or numbers, because nothing comes in 10s and 5s. It's always other numbers, more organic numbers. But as well, the Fibonacci and the 6 and this, and there's like creation, there's problems with the mathematics. It's all broken. But the idea is, let me stick with, anyway, I'm not going to get into that yet. The intervals are longer for the pinnacle experiences that happen only once in a while, but they get shorter and shorter. The idea is the short cycle is stuff that happens every day. It's coded into this informational network as shorter intervals. It's more common. You doesn't have to have a higher user rights access level to get those experiences. The more higher levels of pinnacle are the long body. What happens in the higher ones carries more power to change who you are in the long run at the end of your life than a billion different ways you stub your toe or something like that. And unless you like stub it while going 60 miles an hour or something, it's not going to have that big of an impact. It might feel real strange. Okay, my roommate's downstairs. I was like, somebody's in my house. Or in
Solid head. Solid head.
I know. And so we have this it's geometry to see that, and as well what it means is basically you take that pyramid and it's a spectrum of each moment or each day, and as well it's transcendent. It could be a moment, an hour, a day. In this moment I've stuttered so many times and I've said something so many times, and then I've had a burst of energy where I feel like I've got something down. Stuttering and the halfway stuff that really doesn't amount to what if I stuttered a billion times, it changes the way the outcome is, but is that really what I'm doing here? No, it's all peripheral aspects of what's really going on, the core of who I am and what I'm involved in here, what I'm presenting here. And so the idea is that, I'm getting distracted now. And so say I bring something that I've completed, okay, that happens once every like a few minutes or so. So say now, and again, it's to be 5 minutes, or it could be this whole conversation mapped out over a couple hours as one of these. And you have all the collective lower informational aspects, data points, and then one large one that represents all of the other ones. And so the idea is they're actually, in the end, if you will, they combine and they become you line them up. I'm getting so distracted with my roommate now. You line them up. I might have to ask him if he's going to be banging around down there. You line them up, and the idea is it looks kind of like a spiral, because how do you get these pinnacle points? This is like the trick, the magic. We already see that all the mundane experiences are touching. There's just one connection, but it seems as if these pinnacle experiences are sometimes years in between or minutes in between of this particular moment, but there's more than one of them. But if time is not linear, then they're all really, the space between each one of them is just the same as the space between each one of the mundane experiences. There's just a wider, denser frequency of the mundane. There's seemingly more quantity, okay, and but yet there's a higher qualia of the lesser quantized experience, or lower quantity of experiences of the pinnacle. The idea is you curve it and it becomes a spiral of time where all the pyramids are merged together and they become like pie charts. And you have the centers of them where it's all one moment. It's all one pinnacle experience where every time there is a pinnacle where you're reaching the fulfillment of who you are and bringing something not connected to just the automated body version of who you are. You're bringing who you are from the spirit to the moment. There's one spirit that's across all of the times, no matter how long you live or how complex the situation is. Every time there's a building on fire and you're like, I got to save somebody. There's a time you stood up for yourself and said that, or you felt the highest emotion and you told somebody something. That's the same spirit in you at all times. The part of you that has to go to the bathroom or cut your nails or stub your toe or something like that, and you react in a certain way, that's a same level of reaction, but the defining feature is not who you are. It's an automated version because it's physical. It's determined. We like to say, well, I was the one that did all that. Your body did it. In that sense, you didn't wake up and say, I'm going to do this today because I designed my body. No, it's automated, and that's the whole point. But it means that they're separate in the sense that they're drawn out in a denser aspect. The version of when you combine them all, they won't reflect a single instance of who you are. It'll just be, well, that happened because that has to happen. It just makes sense to be that. When you combine the higher pinnacle versions and roll everything up, it'll be because the same spirit from when I was a kid and I felt I had to say this, from when I was adult and I felt like I had to save that person, I'm talking like a burning building or something, to when you're a young adult or an adult and I have to stand up and say these things, it's the same spirit coming through at all times. That spirit sees all those moments as one moment, all connected as one. There's no difference. And so it doesn't make sense to us linear, because linear is that curve, natural curving is flattened out. And it's all just like one after the other, everything's lined up. And it's like, yeah, they're separate. They make sense, right? It's not happening all at once. It really is. And the brain is like a system of cogs breaking everything down. So the idea is that when you combine, eventually you get a spiral and the pyramids become bigger and bigger and bigger. The aspects of yourself that are in the center of all those pinnacle moments, they create the archetypal version of who you are. And a lot of people shy away from archetypes, but it's probably because they haven't mastered their archetype. And as well, archetypes are a repeating aspect. So it's a way of saying the pinnacle that's never repeated is who you are, but it's also repeated. So it's like a broken terminology. A lot of the English language is derived from broken, old mythical or religious experiences that were corrupted to not make sense. Meaning it'll make sense to you, but your subconscious is going to go, but 2,000 years ago, we used that differently. Like, what are you trying to say now? Because that's the other aspect of it. Your unconscious knows what happened a year ago, what happened 2 days ago, what happened 33 seconds ago, or something like that. Your conscious mind, we don't have access to 3.5 four-dimensional fully. We're like 3.25 or something like that. We can't grip the power required to organize things in this manner because we're in a linear, chronos, broken time scale, which is a gridlocked system where we have to have things done linearly. If you detach from that and let it come as it is, you can literally see it throughout all of time, because what you're feeling now will connect to something that has been, and whatever you're feeling now is important for you to know. And when you know what you're supposed to know based on what you're feeling, it'll map everything out in your life. You can go to age 10 to age 20 to 30, whatever you want to see, and it will all be there because it's what you're being guided to see. If you're trying to force it and it's like a test or an interview or something like that, like for a job or something, it's going to be, you have to plan it out, plan your resume out or something like that beforehand, because it's not what you want to do. It's not what the spirit wants to do. There's no spiritual benefit from doing that. Say there's something happening and it strikes a chord in you because what's happening there is a vibration that you felt 20 years ago. You're never going to forget that. It's impossible for you to forget that because that's who you actually are. The body is just a recording. It's literally just a recording system for the events that are more mundane. Those higher events, they're recorded in spirit. They never get washed away. The body's memories, holographically, they get washed away between each life. That's the idea behind it. It's the basic aspect. Didn't do too well to explain it, but
well, let me just say this, like, so in timelines, like, here's the way that some people feel timelines. Some people feel and have experienced where there is a shift in the way that their day feels, like they have a loss of time. They feel like they're on a different path than they were yesterday, or that other people that were in their circle of friends are all of a sudden very different in the way that they perceive reality today versus the way that they did yesterday. So they have this feeling that there's been a shift in timelines. So to me, like, there's all these different timelines that are there that we have access to, but they're also what we've created in our experiences where they kind of collapse or merge into one, because there is like, the way that I see it is there's this one infinite definitive timeline, and then all these others are kind of a fragment or merging into that one timeline. Am I expressing that clearly?
yeah. And so
Okay.
I'm going to say a little bit about what I just did and tied in. So the spirit is the long body, highest potentiality aspect. What happens when your spirit is the guy at the helm or the lady at the helm is the highest potential of change. Whatever happens when you're fully being motivated by a spirit, okay, it can't be what just happened, because it's 100% infinite in complexity and freedom and newness, if you will, creativity. 100% of the time, you can't actually falsify spirit. If it did, somebody dropped out of spirit, and the same programming comes through. That's why when people do the same things, they're acting in fear, ignorance, or so on, and they're like, "This is my spiritual truth." Okay, that's one. You're not fooling anybody, and two, they're not. I hate saying you. They're not fooling themselves, because if you could go into their mind or put them to sleep and ask them how they feel, and be like, "This is a complete lie. I'm faking it all. It sucks. I know I'm faking it, but I can't tell my conscious mind that. So I'll do it through these dreams and so on and so forth. And that's why these world situations are designed to allow people to experience what their dreams are trying to tell them, to connect the unconscious. Sure, that's a war of the worlds because it's not a real war, but it's the war of who we actually are, of crying and screaming of, no, I don't want to face myself because that's the only thing. I'll die before I do that, some people will say. They'll literally be like, it's just like the Rick and Morty therapist said, some people are okay with the work that we have to do to maintain, connect, heal ourselves, and some people would rather die and be like, screw it, screw them funny looking people, and they project it on everyone else. And so what disease kills 100% of the people that, go through that? And I don't want to hear about any government invented diseases. And so it's literally the cause of death, which is a spiritual death, physical death as well. Imagine that. Your body dies. Okay, well, guess what? There's another timeline where you didn't die. Big secret. That's what goes on. Okay, well, then, so there's no death. Well, then, but what is, so there's no suffering? Well, technically if you don't manage yourself properly, everything is suffering then, because then you live forever and it sucks because you won't face the truth. So it's like, well, spiritual death is the actual death. It's being afraid of who we are. And that's what it has to do with. And it's a clever, it's a manipulation, but it's a freedom where people are being tricked into realizing they're in control by people dangling the power in front of them and then slapping them on their behind until they wake up and realize it's a game they're playing in order to get the outcome that they do want or don't want. And they're at the helm every time, every aspect of that. And so when change happens from the basis of the physical, it is a mundane or the lowest potentiality aspect, lowest possible change. Bottom pyramid to higher. The spirit, again, is the long body and it's the short body. The spirit is the long body and it's the highest potentiality aspect. It's just like the minute hand or even the second hand and the hour hand. That when the hour hand changes, when that pinnacle experience changes, well, you change the entire hour. You only get a few of those in a day. The minute hands and the second hands you have all day. They're short bodies. What you do in a minute is not going to add up to be as much as what happens per hour that you do. And in each hour, the majority of the frequencies that are shared. So, but again, the majority of it's all an interplay. The majority of what happens in each minute is going to add up to become the majority of what happens in each hour. And that's how the mundane literally leads up to the highest potential. And so I think you said something about timeline changes. So what you said there is interesting, which is that it's as if there is, so see what, and I wrote this and then you said something, you did it again. It's like we're in an interplay. We're playing tennis with ideas. Volleyball, if you like that.
I like tennis.
And so it's, I wonder what the breaking of the ball through the tennis racket equates to then. And so spirit is the long body, I just said, is the highest potentiality aspect. Physical is mundane, it's the lowest potentiality. Then you said it's as if there's like a baseline reality, which is what all others branch forth from. So on one end of the spectrum, we have the reality that has all possible information. The one where you were born, you're like, I'm a spirit, I'm infinite, I can do anything. You lived, I'm a spirit. And then where other ones you died, you said, I can just do anything. And you went into another timeline, consciously awake, and sometimes they call that ascending or dying while awake, whatever you want to call it. You broke the laws of physics and the universe booted you into the next game. Or it said, okay, well, this cheap version of a game that somebody invented doesn't work anymore because you're going to break the whole system if you keep doing that. So now you're God, go do whatever you want. And then maybe you came back and stuck around and reinserted yourself, and you've been doing that endlessly so that you can wake others up, which is the sign of a true spiritually fulfilled individual or psychologically fulfilled. And so the idea is that that's the beginning of all of this, the one that was perfect, that is perfect and is happening now. Everything else from that to the lowest level of potentiality where all the mistakes were made, everything was based in ignorance, nothing worked out right. And we don't even actually have to have that one. We have to have the spiritual high aspect. The other one is just, it's everything in between is a dream. It's an overlay where we're literally descending from that pinnacle layer where in that universe, the pyramid is upside down. It's literally like two pyramids where everything that happens, everything that's sure to happen is just easy, is everything that seems difficult from this view. It's an inverted one. Mm-hmm. Live forever. To want to be hungry or to need food, you have to want to be hungry. You don't need to eat. You can eat just by making nourishment for yourself by thinking happy thoughts. if you will. And that's the mundane, that's the base level of your reality, because that's who you are. It's the spirit, the body, inverted to be body and spirit, meaning your mind is your body in that place, and your body is a fleeting glimpse of, oh, I want to be this way one day. I want to be this type of person one day, or I want to be who I am there. And it's all part of your bloodline, your genetics, basically, or everybody through your bloodline throughout all time. That's where the DNA comes into play, where the DNA is what's connecting the two. And it's just a frequency harmonics ratio, divergence or differential. It's like braking and cars turning and handling the weight one way. And it's you, but this is one guided more towards a low efficiency differential. And so everything's dense and fractalized towards high noise to signal ratio. Basically, a lot of filler, a lot of space. It's like if it were I don't know, like instead of candy bar, like a granola bar or something, is basically just peanuts and raisins, and there's like a little bit of granola. And the other one is perfect balance. It's in such harmony with itself that it's not one or the other. It's literally this plethora of meaning, which is stupendous. Maybe not the right word. It transcends the definition. This is part of the previous talk I had. It transcends the definition of one polarity or the other, from fear and suffering to pain, for fear and suffering to pleasure and freedom or knowledge. It's literally neither one, neither the other, but some balance of both that you cannot define, because it's when you define it, it's simultaneously that as well as a thing that is the opposite of that. And it's all a perfect mirror of what you pull out of it, what you reflect from it, meaning it's whatever you want it to be, and it's all things. So then when you get there and you're like, this whole time has been doing this because it's this, that's what you made out of it. And when you sit there and go, oh, I'm making this, everything, that's when you're actually seeing what's really there. And it's literally like an hourglass where we're in that, and one end is highest potential, one end is the other, and they invert from one being is primarily mind, and they have a little body they can flip around like clothes if they want to dance around, or you form yourself there, and the other is a body, or primarily a body with a mind that then you have to try to use your mind to overcome the automation of the body. And maybe that clarified it a little bit more. I trailed off with the long body, short body, and timeline basis on the other like 5-minute rant of that, but there's enough information there for people to begin to put the pieces together.
Yeah, well, this is actually so simple, but it's so complex in trying to explain it. But you had shared about watching the movie The Discovery, and I had already seen it before I saw you had recommended it. But I thought, well, since I'm getting ready to talk to him again, let me go back and rewatch it. And so I went back and I rewatched it. And so that was a great example of timelines in that movie to me. And I won't give it away for anyone that hasn't seen it, but I highly recommend watching that. But the one thing that was stuck out to me, and this wouldn't give the film away, but was when one of the characters was showing how he was changing the timeline, and he goes, this time I'm going to remember, this time I'm going to remember, this time I'm going to remember. That was just like, I didn't, for whatever reason, I didn't pick it up the first time I watched it, but I did the last time. And I kept thinking, this is what I keep saying. It's funny because those are the very words that I have been saying to myself. I'm going to remember. I'm going to remember. This is what this is all about. I'm going to remember.
Yeah, it was a little bit emotional for me.
Yeah.
Sometimes they put things out of these experiences all across the board. It's because a lot of people shared these experiences. Mm-hmm. Like, for instance, you, okay? How do you know they weren't watching you and they wanted to put that one in there, and it's a call for you to realize this is about you and it's about everyone. Mm-hmm. And so I'll just say this. A lot of people are afraid of secret societies. There's a parasitic infiltration that made a lot of effed up stuff go on. The originals were that crew, that scientific crew, that science crew, of scientists. They found out a way to go, all right, sit there, you're ready, right? And they put on a spooky mask, like, and it's like, what are you doing? Okay, he has no fear, he's good, he's ready. You're not afraid of death, this is going to kill you. Are you sure it's going to kill me? It's like, well, technically, it's like a 70% chance of killing you, and it has no likelihood of killing the person. They just have to make sure they have no fear, because what they do is going to project into the experience. And as well, they have no preconception of like, oh, I'm going to go to this place, or this being is going to do this to me and torture me over here, or I'm going to get just this stuff over here. None of that is going to happen. You're going to see what's really going on. Mm-hmm. That's what they do watch the movie. I'm not going to give it away. Watch the movie. Yeah. And even the thing that I wrote, I didn't give it away. I just said a bunch of crazy stuff. And when they watch it, they'll be like, oh, damn. And so that's what it is. But that's what the secret societies were originally about. We're in this time loop. This thing's going on with this interdimensional construct, and nobody understands what it is because it's so far beyond the physical mind that you need a spirit to know it. And you need literally just the knowing aspect. If you put any more than that, it's going to break. It's going to fail to try and figure it out. And that's the I'm going to remember aspect, that it's a knowing that you realize. You don't do it to remember it. You just go, aha, it's whatever I create is the memory that I'm leaving for myself to find again. Yeah. And that's the loop where when you do that, you don't go, I'm chasing my tail, I'm eating my tail. You go, and you rain down on both sides, and you become, and again, the other beings can't do that. They need to insert themselves, and no hating on them or anything. It's just everybody gets out the way when the human does that. When they wake up, everybody gets out the way. Nobody wants that. That's the sun shining out. And if you get in that way, if you resist, that friction that builds up, it melts. It's like resisting the sun all by putting yourself around the entire earth. Okay, well, you better happen to be able to also withstand the force of the creation of the universe, because if not, that's going to drive the resistance to physical form up. And we have access to that, but we've fallen asleep. We've forgotten. It's not a simulation or a dream time and you get like one rung and then it goes. It's all of time and space. It created literally a time-space mechanism that we're inserted into. And so, meaning you do it forever, but that's where disillusion, that's where the second death comes from. That's where this weird secret stuff, blah, blah. You have to die before you die to become immortal and to see what this place really is. It doesn't have to be physical. It doesn't have to be. But if you can somehow manage that by working this loophole and figuring this workaround out, well, then guess what? You're going to get it a lot easier. And then again, it's not easier. It's you did it faster. Yeah. But just be prepared to realize you didn't know anything about what you really thought was going on, because you've been here for a lot longer than you expected from your monkey mind, which is part of what I was going to go into, but I kind of forgot and trailed off. The spiritual component is beyond everything that can be understood. Again, the highest, the pyramid of pyramids, the pinnacle, is that where you wake up and you see it's all you. Right. And everything that we thought it was before that was just a game we were playing with ourselves, playing hide and go seek, like Alice in Wonderland or something. Yeah.
All right. Thank you. That was really informative. And I really appreciate that. I am going to, I know I'll never get to all the questions. So anything that I don't get to, I'll save for our next conversation whenever we decide to have another one. But there are some other things that I just wanted to go into that I think are important that I get to today. And one is, because this did come up a lot, where you talk about extraction, and it kind of feels like I should have done this before, because it feels like what we just did was such a perfect way to end, but that's not how it's going to go. Someone was referencing the fact that you talk about extraction, and they say that you said they'll put and this was from our previous conversation, where they actually gave the minute mark 32.32 in. You say they'll put a beam around your consciousness and transfer you through, and you'll be in another universe. So this is something they don't need your permission to do to you. Who exactly is they you speak of? And I think we've kind of already answered that, but I'll just let you go ahead and elaborate. And also, I'm going to finish up this question. And how can we distinguish between a benevolent extraction and the malevolent soul-stealing process you describe, which also involves some kind of beam that pulls your consciousness out of your body? I did that backwards, didn't I?
Kind of, but the harvesting and the beam, or that pulls your soul out of your body, That's a kind of different. We need definitions. Excuse me. Some definitions basically go into the soul being the bio-mind, which is basically a recording of the brain or the artificial holographic memory. Then you have you're not the soul. The soul is an imprint of your spirit within this time matrix. So it's like a residual structure that takes up your energy and glues you to it. If there's a soul, put it this way, the soul harvesting thing does need your consent. That's the whole point.
Okay.
It needs nobody's going to sit there and be like, yeah, destroy me or something like that, or basically use me. So whenever they get consent, it's not actually consent. It's manufactured consent where the individual believes that they're getting something different and they're signing up for something else. That's the whole point. If you have to sign up for something, it's technically it's going to be one way or the other unless you know exactly what's going on. Because if it were something that's already happening, then no one needs consent or anything like that. Basically, how that works is if something is happening, then interacting in a level that's the same thing as what's happening, it's not an issue of consent. It's kind of like saying if somebody's going to die, which is in a way illusory, but still, basically that's what it is. That's what determines this. That's how it was explained to me. If they won't exist unless something is done, then that's consent. Meaning if people are going to go to war and blow themselves up on accident, some guy's riding a motorcycle and it's leaking fuel and, it's literally a spark is about to blow the whole thing apart. As long as they've lived in a way where it is conceivable that they would want to preserve themselves and given another chance, if you will, then no firefighter has to go up to him and say, there's a flame leading up from the stoplight you were just at coming up to your bike, and as soon as it reaches your tank, it's going to blow your legs off. Could I please have permission to put out that fire and move you to the side of the vehicle in case it explodes? That's never been done in history before. No firefighter sees your house on fire and you're literally running around in flames and they're having this pen and some guy's chasing you like, sign here. Well, that's a public service. Do hospitals do that? Of course, because they want their money. They say, you're dying, sign this. I can't do anything if you don't sign this. Which is crazy. The only way they're allowed to do that is if the person's knocked out. And then they can go in and they have to kind of do it beyond that. They can't communicate with the individual, which is the most fraudulent behavior ever because that's the whole idea. I just displayed it for you. The hospitals are good. They make you sign something so that you know what you're getting. It's the opposite. The person signed for it. Now when that shit doesn't work and it causes 10 times the problems that they had when they first went in, guess what? You can't complain. You signed for it. It's a scam if you have to do that, if they have to, go for that. And so it doesn't, now if a person says, I'm going to do something because I feel it's right, that's not, the people that run this are the people that have the capacity to know everything. They know who did what, they know who they did it to, they know the intentions based upon the water molecules that passed through their field and created these bioetheric emissions out of their aura or whatever you want to call it, and how, in that sense, how they were feeling, and they know how many times, when, where, and why it all happened. They know everything. So if anyone's going to get in trouble for something, so on and so forth, eventually there's basically going to be judgment, and the people that manage that are the ones that manage extraction or whatever you want to, waking humanity up. Mm-hmm. And so, and then there's two ways of people going about that. Some people are using these, media and debauchery and stuff like that. And they're saying it's going to be as dark as possible. We're going to make it look as stupid as possible until people give up on this stupid show and realize it's all a scam. Or that there's another crew that basically hangs back, and at the last moment, if it basically goes as far as it can go, within it, at that point, the likelihood increases beyond a reasonable doubt that it's basically we're going to have a quantum collapse again. There's unless that person designated throughout the entirety of their life that they just want to die and they want everybody to die and they want to kill everybody and kill themselves, it's like a negative % that you would go to them and say, this is all we know. this is what we see. This is all this happening. Here's the records of human history. Here's the consciousness records, the judgment of the book of life. Okay, and then here's what's about to happen with the dissolution into Armageddon type, end of days, dissolution of consciousness. Now, do you want to dissolve? Unless it's a 99% likelihood that they're going to go, yeah, throw me into the mouth of the beast. I want to literally lose my etheric form for all of time and be ground up into a dimensional dust that becomes a primary material of the next universe, and I'm erased forever. Unless they can look at the events and in a reasonable, situation of their life, say that's what they want. In a reasonable situation, the accepted attitude or behavior would be to help the individual. Strange thing, they can pull the person out of their consciousness or out of their body and say, this is what's going to happen, and do exactly what I just said. And then that person's going to go, yeah, I don't want to dissolve. Are you crazy? Sure. And they put them back in their consciousness. They have no memory, and they have permission from everyone. That's how it works. And as well, the other group does the same thing. Hey, can we poison you and invite you to this cloning station and this, that, and the other? It's real fun. You're like, who are you? That's not important. Look at all these naked people. And they go, yeah, and then now there's all these torture scenarios, and this is really just for them this group that merged with the end of time and said, we didn't hold our energy properly. We're going to dissolve once humanity passes this point. There's no anchor point. We become that forgotten interdimensional parasite species. We dissolve. So they just want to get their kicks in as much as possible, and they went through all the time teleporting people and abducting people and doing crazy stuff. So there's two groups doing that. One, manufacturer's consent, gives you the contract that you signed before they mess you up with medicine, and then one does it another way, and even then they usually get actual consent, but it's just that people won't realize it and remember it. Mm-hmm. And so then look into the gist of it by Yellow Rose for Texas, I think. And so basically it was and as well, the discovery, the what we were talking about, the aspect of that's the extraction. It's literally like all these systems set up, and otherwise, it goes like this, and it's like there's a bunch of billiard balls, and the lines in between them it's like an electrical grid, and your consciousness, your soul basically just goes wherever your spirit is drawn to, wherever your intentions are. You go into a universe where that's where you're represented. So it's also these groups, some infiltrated, some hold strong, train the individual to manage themselves, not by, I'm this. Yeah, that's what I want, but not speaking, not doing the ego thing and the conscious thing, and knowing from an organic or an unconscious aspect of, well, I can say that, but look what I've done. Look what my long body has represented throughout all time. These are the same cycles of change that I've done for the past 30 years. I can say this is what I want all the time. That's what the behavior shows. That's what I've actually done. That's what my intentions have held. And so that matches that spirit, that frequency, that highest level. That's what's the person's, it's like the compass on the boat, if you will, the guides where it's going to go interdimensionally or through hyperspace at that point, and it brings them into a universe that corresponds with that frequency. So the idea is to boost that to the highest level. You can go to any frequency you want. They use technology, so it's spiritual knowledge, and then you can guide yourself. And without that, technology can be used to close off the avenues which basically lead to hell realms, where the majority of people here that are in this place going, if you ask them something about control or power, it's like, well, no, we need them. They keep us safe. They got all the guns and power. If somebody wants to do something, they shoot everybody, and that's good, right? And we have war for that safety. So if you take them, or they go through an experience or something like that, or die or whatever it is, and go into the next realm, well, they're going to match one that matches that frequency. Every majority of people are going to a hell realm and just creates the cycle over and over again. And the people who have figured out immortality and how to jump from one place to the other, well, guess what? They're the same, their spirit in each reality. They've consciously awakened their spiritual aspect, meaning when somebody goes into one of the other realities and ends up in this one that's locked down and controlled in as well, it goes in a progression each time, up or down. It's never the same. So if they're low frequency, well, they're going to go into a lockdown world where one war went this way, or maybe we're at war at this point. And let's say they leave that one and they're still pointed low oriented. they're going to go into another one, and they'll get to that base level reality where it's just physical automation, it's robotoids, it's mutations, and a takeover by another species. It's the lowest possible reality. And so then if they point high and orient, their moral compass high, they bounce to higher and higher realities. So they're building a pathway to the highest reality, and it's through spiritual knowledge. And if a person hasn't obtained the high level of power that is required to build it's like time, that virtual egg thing, that's a trajectory through time. Instead of waiting a million years to go around the circle, if you build up your energy without giving it out, without using low efficiency methods of breathing, bleeding that energy out through physical or sexual or emotively parasitic pathways, then you have a higher potential of that spiritual awakening to occur. And when you're at the highest potential, whatever reality you go to, then it's literally like the rays beaming out. You can go 360 degrees. You have full choice over where you go. The base level fundamental is one way or the other. You really can't do much. You can bounce. Basically, base level is linear steps, one way or the other, steps down or up. The highest level is leaps and bounds, meaning you hit exponential curves of where you want to go. And that never ends. You can go to a universe where everybody's literally you can make food out of where the ether. So the idea is there's a plan, because it was viewed, and the interdimensionals and the dark factions pretty much figured out, well, we can't fully win because it would crack the universe. What happens if we knock out all the possibilities? Now there is no base level timeline where everything's perfect, if you will. Well, if there's no that, then the opposite end of that, the ones that we rule over in these hell realms, well, what do they become? They dissolve as well. So they need that level to contain itself, to still exist. And so, so what happened? Well, we won. No one has the capacity to do that. There's these people, these consciousnesses coming in that haven't been here in a billion years. They've just been off doing their own thing in the ether. And of course, there's this call going out through the frequency spectrum of the universe, like a child and mother calling for help. And these beings are coming in. And it's not interdimensional extra aliens, something like that. It's children that are more resilient to basically being raped and molested, which is what every person goes through in this reality. And if you're in these groups, it physically literally happens. And it's just people who are more resilient to that, not like people with wings or something like that. And so why is this happening? Is because they look in the timeline. It's like, apparently we won. We made a world war. We took out all the ability for nutrients and vitamins and free will, freedom of speech, all that stuff. And then the species fizzled out. We had like an automation reality from the Nazis versus America versus the Jews and the immortal Illuminati and so on and so forth. And that took over this species. That took over this reality. There was a spirit, but it was so dimmed in comparison to what it was or what it could be, that there was a severance between this reality and the Most High. And it became an infinite loop that couldn't get out of that lower dimensional structure. And we've been here for like millions of years. And so a plan had to be enacted. And that's what, if you look at a lot of the early ancient texts are what the religious texts remodeled and made up basically to make the modern day religions. But that's what's looked at as these liberation concepts as far as waking people up. And at the very lowest and highest, it's not here, get in there, and we're helicoptering you out. It's literally all the exit that would result in absolute total annihilation of the soul before the person extracts from the universe, which extractions means liberation. It's just more angled. Those paths get blocked off artificially to the point where it's literally like a team of people focusing on that individual, if you will, sending loving messages and thoughts and encouragement. You can make it. And on the higher plane, spiritual down, okay, that's nourishment. That's food. If you're on a bike or a car, it's somebody booting you in the boot of the car and pushing you down the road faster. That's the whole point. It's kind of like you got to hit 88 miles an hour, which is a occultic number and terminology. But that's the point of trajectory to the Most High. You have to have a speed that is It's basically we're in a gelatinous void space. This is all conceptual. It's not, you're not physically going into a dimension or out of physical space or something. It's energy and awareness. It's as if, though, metaphorically, you have to build up enough energy, push yourself through the void of space until you hit a barrier, and the barrier is a virtual barrier, meaning it is the maximal concept of space and distance in space, and the maximal concept of time and distance in time, meaning to surpass it, it requires an eternity and an infinite amount of energy. So the idea is that all it means is that by the time you get through that barrier, your physical body has to be pure energy. You have to become one with your mind fully. And what that means is that you can't have your ego in the way, because the ego creates a separate point of, well, I'm my body, or no, I'm the mind. And there's that hinge there, that fulcrum, which causes that spinning of intentions, desires, results, reactions, of responsibility, blame shifting or projection, and it creates that ignorance, conscious, unconscious display. So the conscious and the unconscious have to be merged. The shadow self accepted. That's what all is being led up through history. People have to have the energy capable of maintaining a form. Basically, it's like that. You shoot off and you have to get through an infinite state. The point is, you can only use the energy that you have at the point of launch. There's no food out there. There's no food in the journey. Same thing as the inner earth journey. You can't eat on the pathway through inner earth because it throws your organs off and persons turn inside out. It's really weird. It's kind of disgusting how it works. They don't really turn inside out, but their organism breaks down and they become, it's like what the Nazis did, in Indiana Jones, because they had poor intentions traveling through the Holy Grail, which is a metaphor of the cup. It's a pathway that they instantly aged 1 billion years in a second because their spirit, which is eternally old, merged with the body, but not the form with the ego, the concept, and the two don't mix. It's like putting new wine. Is it new wine? And I think it's old wine in new skins.
Yeah.
Doesn't mix. That's the opposite. Nobody would do that. It would break the bag and just wouldn't work. You can put new wine in, I think, new skins. Is it that? Or no? One or the other. Basically, one way, because the wine expands, it'll crack the bag that's not broken in. It's not stretched, and it's like usually an animal stomach. And so it's weird, but that interplay is how it works. And so if we go on this journey through infinite time and infinite space, where your trajectory is mapped out from the point of launch, meaning the calculation of the coordinates, the point of launch must be high enough to the point where the resulting arc curve of your trajectory will be outside of this universe entirely. And it's not physical. You don't literally pump yourself real fast like Sonic the Hedgehog and shoot off into space. It's metaphoric. It's a spin rotation that happens for consciousness. Dan Winter talks about this when it's an equilibrium that expands forward and backwards, in and out simultaneously, this expansive contraction, breathing of time space. When it is properly motivated through pure intentions, bliss, these are what are called fire letters, and they're ancient aspects of the self that are formed out of, based upon the high spiritual aspect, meaning it's eternal. The shadow letters are based upon the mundane, the physicality that is shaped by the spirit. It's not what shapes the spirit. You say, well, my body creates my consciousness. That's backwards. It's upside down. The light creates the shadow, not the shadow creates the light. It would literally be like saying a shadow over there and being like, this light bulb is now there because the shadow's there. It's backwards. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
Our body it's what does it, but it's not. It's created by the spirit. And so when you're in the spirit that's doing it, and it's inverted from the what we see as we think the body's in control and the ego and all that, then you activate this like spiral frequency of organic energy transfer through this fractal convergence field that opens up and creates a perfect geometry from a wide level density here and a 0 point at an orientation, a proportion, an iteration, higher and lower with the number of iterations at a finite level, and then at a frequency or a finite measurement, if you will, that basically slips in between atoms. It's when it's lined up this way, the right way, and it's lined up in each iteration small the right way, you get a perfect curve that is the same pattern of the entire universe. And so when your energy matches that, you go an infinite distance and an infinite time into that curve, and it opens up basically a pattern, a portal out of here. The point is, that's basically your heart system. When your heart and your mind are one, that's the converging of the higher and the lower, the unconscious, the conscious, what you are afraid of and you don't want, but your conscious mind knows there's something missing or something like that, when they're basically all is revealed through the heart, through that in the mind. And so the idea with what I was told and shown, I was like, okay, you don't believe, right? All right, go over there, we're going to have a little practice run. And they can, so the energy is from bliss. It's from a fractal geometric proportionality, where the spin, which is the natural occurrence of a person through the sine wave of time, you're always doing something, you're always changing. So imagine you take that, okay, now twist them. Now it's a spiral. Okay, now put it this way, smush it. Okay, now it's a coil, if you will. Now you got a certain coil, a Tesla coil a certain way, you get a perfect equilibrium, you make scalar energy, you get the perfect frequency, the Hertz cycles of correct amperage amounts of power going through, and the perfect geometric alignment, and you get a scalar field that connects with the mind, and you create a mind-to-mind computer system that goes into and out of dimensions. Okay, so when your energy is doing that, then you get a UFO that travels in and out of universes. So the point is that you need 3 phases. That there is a high is harmonization, meaning the spin or the change, the undulation is basically a deviation of first binary of higher and lower, ego, higher mind, spirit, body. And when you transcend the deviance and you realize that there's basically the variation, that it's neither one or the other, because to define it as one or the other means that it is a complete thing, it is a solid thing, it's perfectly outlined, and that's you, and that's the universe, and it has a beginning and an end, and that's it. Nothing has a beginning and end. It all simply is. The definitions always are added to it. As soon as you define it, it's like, there's the outline. Well, you just drew an outline. What's outside of what you drew? Nothing. Well, and how is there an outline there? What is the outline in? So as soon as you do that, it gets more and expands. The ego wants to go, no. It's just what it is. It's there. That's it. The spirit knows it's continuously going. It's forever. So the equilibrium, when you balance the two, it's neither one or the other, and you open up a transcendent pattern of both simultaneously. And that's the third factor, if you will. It's the Trinity, the original Trinity. And that's the pathway to 0 point. And to do that, all you have to do is go, it's okay, monkey mind. There's love. You're loved. I love you. And accept that. That's the secret. That's the big secret of the rosy heart, okay, of the clear pathway to the space within to equal, to cleave this reality and go into a place of heaven or something. It's within you. That's the pathway. It's the fractal pattern that Dan Winter talks about. It's kind of crazy when I first saw him, because that was what I was learning from strict experience. And it's probably the same way with his intellectual, mathematical, knowledge, and then being a awakened spirit of going, that's why that works. That's why that does that, because of this, and that, and being able to explain it that way. And I explain it the same way, just not nowhere near the kind of words that he uses and the mathematical descriptions. There's curvy lines that go this way, and you just shake it a lot, and then it goes that way. And if it's balanced, when the shake happens or the spin goes up like a mixer, it makes a perfect congruence pattern that goes in and out, and it's like this 369 Tesla ovulation, oscillation, but it's like an ovulation because it's the egg. This is what the Orientals will say, the egg, with the person impregnating themselves with the egg of consciousness, the egg of super consciousness, because when that happens, you form an egg, and in that vortex, that center point, all of time and space is accessed. But and then if the point is, when that's not balanced, that sine wave, like the vocals, Dr. Emoto talking about the crystals that are imbalanced with these negative emotions, because when negative emotion or the lower mundane is the primary factor, that pyramid's upside down. But it's not, if you do that, but you're not in spirit when you do that, it's the body doing that. That means you have one pyramid this way and the other pyramid that way, and they're merged. It's like a transsexual of energy. And you have the pinnacle, up high, it's your ass and your genitals. And the people that do that in the projects or the dark, whatever it is, they can't activate their soul or their heart unless there's a sexual experience. And the more that goes on, the mind degrades, and that becomes this degrading sexual experience. That's their pathway. It's just weird, okay? So, well, the goal is to offer everybody the pathway that when we heal the dark in this universe as a species, well, guess what? You heal the other end, the light aspect who's feeling that. And the idea is that if you're the light aspect, you're only healing. You're not blaming, and it's like, I'm the light aspect, so screw the dark. No, it's not a wrestling match. It doesn't exist. That's actually the dark.
Yeah.
But that's why it's all this interplay of there's masks. The ego has masks. It's like the Orientals also say that you have 3 masks, and I added another one in the other interview I did, that you have the one that you show like people formally, the one that you show just your friends, and the one you show only yourself. You actually have another one that you don't even show yourself, and that's your unconscious, that's your spirit, that you have to take off the form of the body to see, but you don't have to because you can do it mentally. And so that pattern, that's the most difficult part, is harmonizing, or it's the most confusing, where it's when you're in this flow, this ebb and flow of your choice, your decisions, the changes that you have access to, of how you modify reality based upon your intentions and your free will, that if it's high spirit, it's free will, it's high free will. Free will is actually spirit. That's all that means, that you're in control, you're doing it because that's what's happening. Mundane desires, you as a spiritual being guided by the body instead, the animals guiding the cart and the guys being dragged behind the cart by the reins, that's backwards. Or putting the cart before the horse, same concept, just in older terminology. It's less cartoonish. And honestly, I mean, it's sensible that way too, because it's even more cartoonish, because it's like, well, how does that, where you have to teach them to walk backwards, and then it's like, it's basically the same thing. And it also means that you had to do that because that person put the horse and the cart in front of the horse. Whereas if the horse gets out of control and guys being dragged by the reins, well, that happens kind of all the time. But if a person put literally the cart in front of the horse, there's a serious problem with their mentality, and because they're not comprehending how the situation works. And when the people flip their energy system upside down, which is what these depravity, these tortures, all that does, it's a choice. People have to try to do that and accept it. One time doesn't do it. It one time distorts their soul, their garment of the light and the flesh mixed to make this higher flesh shirt thing that people wear as a soul, puts a tear in it. To continue to do that, it's really it stains it. To continue to do that, it tears it. And when they're fragmented entirely, that's the situation we have in the broken timelines, where everybody's just like us, just zombies. Yeah. And so harmonization, when what you're in control of is either through the highest aspect of free will, which again, it's a paradox, because when you're trying, this is like the weirdest thing. Your ego, your conscious mind tries. So when you're trying to do something, you're not doing it. That's the whole point. So when you're trying to be in free will, because that's what you know you need, because you're basically saying you're not in free will, so you have to put all this energy towards it, it's not working. When you say, I'm going to be in free will, or I'm going to interact in that because I'm already doing it, and you just let it be, okay, it's literally just like, I want to be in free will. Okay, well, that's it. Just doing that is the aspect of doing that. It's not doing one thing or the other. It can't be defined. It has no definition. It's literally an essence.
It's like going around screaming, I'm a sovereign being, I'm a sovereign being, I'm a sovereign being, and trying to prove that in the reality when you already are that sovereign being. What are you fighting? It's almost like to me, that's almost fear-based in the fact that you're trying to say, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. I know, you're trying to get to that point. Like, you're questioning, am I really a sovereign being? And when you know you're sovereign, you know you have free will, and you know you can just be, because everything is created by you for a purpose.
Exactly. It's an instantaneous, simultaneous, and it's a differential between image, creating the image, the outward appearance, even to your own self, or the knowing, the aspect of knowing. And in that sense, though, you can go around and yell at all you want. You might be right, but at that point, you're not doing it to prove anything. You're just messing with people and having fun. And somebody might giggle and like get it, like see the glimmer in your eye, and be like, that's funny, right? Because maybe then you're making fun of the people that are doing that in a wholehearted way. But then if it's serious and it's like you got like this dagger and it's like, I am sovereign, this is why I have to try so hard and I'm in this hostile state, it's a delusion. Basically, what we do with the ego mind is only monkey mind. It's only delusion. If you do something, you don't actually have to do it. You just be it. If you do something that is related to who you are, you don't then go out and do it. That's what we do on the stage. That's what we do when we play our role, our character of who we think we are, or at least who we want to present to others. Mm-hmm. So the aspect of harmony as far as harmonizing ourselves, is literally simply free will. And free will is when you do what you're doing because that's who you are and that's who's doing it. And when we're in automation, it can present itself under the guise of doing what I'm doing because that's who I think I am.
Mm-hmm.
And basically that process of thinking in the brain and all that stuff, it's an illusion. It's a show. It's an automation. It's a robot. It's a monkey robot thing somebody designed. And pure spirit doesn't need that. It doesn't mean you don't have a mind when you do that stuff, or brain at that point, because the mind and the brain are different. It just means that you see it. It's a show. It's a robot. It's a game we're playing. And you know it's not the outward appearance, the intentions, the image, the physical interaction. It's the intent, the knowledge, the knowing, and the spiritual sense. That's what you are. That's what determines it. Meaning, when you're truly in free will, when you're truly in spirit, oftentimes it's marked because the whole world is doing this, and you're in the center, and calm center, completely still. And so you get this opposite effect, this inversion, that to build your energy to first you're harmonizing to do that. I talked about this with the circle, something with the circle in it, and I was trying to describe how that same pattern of the pyramid, okay, and you combine them, first it's like this up and down, and you see which frequency is which, and then they become this pyramid of frequencies, and then you take those and combine them, you get this pie chart, and you get this spiral out of that, and you stretch the spiral out, you get a spiral in motion, like a DNA strand, and then you coil that up in different ways, and you get this extra dimensional continual ascent from higher and lower to extra dimensions, because you have to see what you can see. You have to be one step above that. So as you see more and more, you're boosting yourself bigger and bigger until you get the maximum dimensional body, and you become all of time and space. But it's a misnomer, because it's not time and space. Time and space is a physical hologram. It's the brain. You become all that is, which is beyond time and space. That's the whole point. And time and space becomes one little speck at that point, and there's like infinite span. But the idea is that if you're spinning, it's like a plate made of an equilateral triangle, or spaghetti on the plate, or anything like we used to do in school. If there's more in one area, and it's like the ego isn't as balanced as the mind with the heart, and it's like all is out of whack, okay? If you can't interchange the two, and they're literally, you can scrunch them and make them all one point, and you can squeeze them down into that fractal point and expand it back out the other end. If it's offset because one's heavier than the other, and you're trying to say, I'm spiritual because your ego is doing it this way, it's usually the ego that's off balance. The other two can't actually be out of balance. This world is the only one that has a measurement to it. Everything else is just pure isness. Basically, if the ego is out of balance, that's it. That's really the only one that can be out of balance. So everything else, they're linked to the point where you get more spirit. Well, guess what? The other two expand. But if the ego then wants more or wants less and is afraid, is overly aggressive but more afraid, when that thing spins up, which is the mapping of it instantly expanding and instantly shrinking down, eventually, it breaks. I was going to say maybe it shuts off. Eventually it breaks because the weight's distributed in an imbalanced manner, improperly. It's an unequal distribution, which is kind of what we have. Everything in this world is proving this collective mind is unequal distribution. Not unequal, but in an unequal distribution. Money, media, truth and knowledge, aggression, sexuality is all imbalanced. Everything is out of whack. Every aspect of this place is proven to be not sacred, because that's what it's representing. And it's not that you fix the sacred stuff there, because again, that's going around saying this is going to be sacred and this is sacred and don't do that because this said not to do that. No, you do it because it's who you are and you know it. The idea is, when it's imbalanced like that and it breaks apart, okay, so how do you fix that? You put everything back into alignment. So when everything is spinning and it's wobbling you off your center, how do you fix the fact it's like a top that's on a plate that's bent with like a dome or something, but has a little divot on top where it's centered? And so if it's spinning and it goes off that angled plate, okay, it's going to want to go down around the edge. And then the farther it goes, the harder it's going to be to push to get it back into center, like you're balancing something, spinning plate balancing like the people in the circus. And as soon as it gets over this way, you're going to have to do 10 times the amount of energy that you had doing this in order to push hard and get the energy back to balance. That's part of the extraction, where people go so hard that they're going to need to balance themselves to get this right. It would break their arm, and it's impossible. The dark faction did such a good job, and we fell so asleep that it would all just dissolve if we had to do it all, in the sense that, it's not that we don't do it on our own. It's just that there's help. It's not wrong to accept help, okay? And there's multiple layers of help. But the idea is, how do you get that plate, that top, whatever it is, back in balance? You move the centerpiece of where that weight is, the center of gravity, back to the center of the thing it's spinning over, this equilibrium, this convergence point of the physical dimension of our mind. We move the intention point of who we are, instead of being externally projected from one aspect or the other of this polarity construct, from some event that occurred in the past, or some event we're worrying about in the future, or some external aspect that is not in the center, because nobody can point to the exact center of another person. We can guess and just feel, but only you know, meaning to do it, you have to do it. To move into harmony, it's something that you do, only you can do. It's the only action that's the purely truest free will of being, and it's the action that is a non-action, because all you do is stop trying to regain control by bouncing yourself back around the side of this hurricane of events that are distracting everything. You let that go, and you move calmly back into the center, and you just be. That's the first phase, which is harmonization. The second is you have to build power. In that center state, it's like a ballerina or a figure skater. When they spin, I can't remember the term, they go into their spin and they have their arms way out here. What happens when they bring everything in? They get tighter in that 0-point fractal. Energy increases. Mm-hmm. Energy increases because velocity increases. Velocity and energy increases because change happens to their mass, but that's not really the basis of it. But the idea is they have more power. And so if they're spinning slow and it's like their hands out here, okay, it's not going to hurt. If they spin fast and you like get chipped with their their blade or something, it's going to hurt a lot more. They spin so fast, I don't know, it's like amazing. And that's just figure skating. So imagine your consciousness, which is made out of light. So these crafts do the same thing. When you do that, you're opening up a gravitational or spatial temporal distortion field that interacts with multiple dimensions simultaneously, and your body becomes the ego consciousness or the body consciousness into the long body. That's why when you do that, you're feeling a higher power, and what you're doing is withdrawing your energy from this illusion. You're withdrawing your energy from being all out here and located here and being held by this person, entanglement and attached to this idea, and you're letting that go, which is, it's like the monkey who has, or the kid with the Pringles in his hand in that movie that he couldn't let go. It's actually in I can't remember what it was, like one of Will Smith's, like Fresh Prince of Bel-Air or something like that. I can't remember. It was some movie, but it's also if you see how I think an Aborigine finds water, or a bushman, tribal bushman finds water, and he puts a bunch of seeds in a hole he digs in the ground, and it's thin, but then it opens up so monkey can get a big handful, and the monkey's curious, so he just goes into the hole, and bushman goes and hides, and he grabs a handful of seeds, which he probably doesn't even know what it is, but he just knows it's something good. And then the bushman comes up and puts a leash around his neck. And the point is, the monkey's trying to get away, but because his hand's in a fist, and he's not smart enough to let go of the seeds and slide his hand out and run away, his hand gets caught. And so, and then he uses that. He feeds him salt, and the next day follows him to the water hole. And so, why did I go into that now? Because I can't remember how I was going to connect to it. But the first is harmony. The second is power. And so I can't remember how I was tying that together, but I mean, eventually it'll make sense, because I can see a secondary way. For instance, if we have, well, I guess the attachments that we have on the outside. The first, the basic idea is that when you go through that compression sequence, if you will, the added information that is related to the ego can't go through that 0-point fractal. It's the eye of the needle, the wealth, the richness, the ignorance doesn't belong there. It doesn't go through. It's filler material that's represented to this existence. That's what it is. That it's even better than that explanation. It's allegory. It's the idea that you have to let it go, what you think you're gaining by trapping yourself in this world of attachments, in order to get through that passageway. You have to let it go. If you hold on, like, no, but I came here for that. No, you didn't. You came here to leave. It's a paradox. You have to let it go. And then the truth is, some bushman in dimensional space made that hole, so we hold on to it, and he comes and yokes us up and puts us in another dimension. But that's the idea, that these attachments that are way out here, we have to let them go. That power, that act of letting go, which is a non-action, it's the withdrawal, the nullification of something that's holding us on. It builds power. It gives us power. It restores ourselves. We have a high level of power. We can't go higher than that. It's what we are.
Mhm. When you were sharing that, what was coming to me just listening was, I'm imagining exactly what you started to sum it up as, which I think is a really great way to actually close, is I was, envisioning, okay, so I'm detaching I'm letting go of all of my attachments. I'm taking every bit of my energy and I'm allowing this energy to be detached from what's external, and I'm absorbing it all internally, and I am becoming, or I am just being. And as I'm letting go, and all this energy is being encapsulated within me, and I'm just being, I'm also going and just
Well, that's what it is, because you're always spinning. And so if you have all these, if you're like you got strings and these things on the outside, it's not going to spin as fast as it was before. You're not actually gaining speed. You're going back to what you were when you didn't have this karmic drag, literally as if you're in hyperspace, and it's pulling your realities to a low spectrum of possibilities that keep this person, the mind in these matrix systems.
Mm-hmm.
They literally mapped out these matrix systems. Of course, I mixed the phase that I'm talking about, but come on, people, it's not that important. That the people, the people who, I'm not even going to go there. The people who created the matrix systems, they instead of blocking off the lower levels, they blocked off the higher levels. Yeah. So it's literally all you can see is if you don't use that spirit, if you look out with your head, it's like, oh, it's just damnation and destruction and terror and LL Cool J 1980s songs. Not that was part of. So there's a lyric out of Mama Said Knock You Out or something. And anyway, now I'm getting real out of there. I'm going to wrap this up.
Yeah.
Or unwrap it, if you will. You wrapping dimensionally is unwrapping into the higher. When we're squeezing down here, the other end of it, which is actually above us because we're inverted at this point, but it looks like it's that way. We're going in. We're not going in. We're going out into the real. We unfold on the other end, which is crazy. It's like we're a balloon that got sucked inside out by some weird process that we agreed to for some manufactured consent reason. Because the whole idea is just like somebody said, I got this really good idea, this plan, but you got to, basically it's going to suck, and you got to agree to have everything suck for a while. And it's like, all right, let's do that. And so who did we save by doing this? Ourselves. So it's like the guy that started it didn't even benefit from it. He was just like, I was running away like a trickster for the universe. I'm like, good. But once it happens, it can't happen again. And if anything can happen in a spectrum of realities, then that's the point of going through it, because now we know it can't happen ever again. And we're the eternal guardians of that, if you will. And so what we're holding on to that's slowing our spin down, that's the attachments. And it's literally emotional, mental, psychoetheric, bioetheric, bioemission implants, these etheric devices, implants. They're literally frequencies. If you're a spectrum of choices, possibilities, not behaviors, but intentions, okay, these are frequencies that are low on the intention scale of spirituality, free will, and in that sense, selflessness, and they're low on that and high on the mundane, desire-based aspect, aggressive animal monkey mind thing. The lower aspect of the higher is in control, one or the other. And so when we let go of that, it literally, we're already spinning. All that happens is it increases the spin. The increasing of the spin one way, it begins to open a simultaneous expansion in all directions at once. It's an expansion, contraction, a paradoxical beingness that is forwards and backwards in time, because we're not looking at a spinning dish here. We're looking at your etheric signature in hyperspace. And when you do that and your power level increases, when you contract and become more refined, you expand. You don't get smaller like the ballerina. Your power gets so defined that now you're in the realities that you belong to. And in that sense of the possibilities of this time matrix, you expand beyond the bounds of the matrix, where there's like a specific set. It's like a volcano or something, and it can't hold you in anymore, because it literally looks like a time matrix, a grid of algorithms, and the same frequencies keep happening over and over again, like a marionette doll, and the strings break, and it like runs off the screen and breaks the laws of physics. Your consciousness deviates through time, space, boundaries, and you see more than you were supposed to. That's 21 minutes farther than I was supposed to go. And so the last one, that's the energy, and they can help with the harmonization, bounce you in, but you got to let go of attachments. They can increase your spin by helping that bouncing. Through that, they can increase your energy, beaming with a little bit of love energy, to the point where because the point is how to make it so basically layman's terms, human understands it. Well, I let my fist go. I'm not going anywhere. What's going on? All right, think about the worst thing that ever happened to you. Are you okay with that? Are you in love with your whole existence? I want to kill that person. Okay, well, those are your attachments. That's your emotionality. The point is, if some group of not masters, the worst word I could have used there, group of adepts surround you and beams love energy into you, you're going to start weeping, and that's going to be this wound deep within healing, and it's going to restore what was taken away from that. And as well, that guy that's running around with a piece of your soul energy, all of a sudden he's going to start coughing and getting sick because they survive off of the suffering of ripping the soul energy out of people. And to do that, you can't say, here, give me some scoops. They have to molest and torture and rape and do all this weird stuff. That's how they feed. Weird thing, but that's the point. And so they can do this with technology and spiritual knowledge to literally beam heart energy and activate. It's literally like jump starting someone's heart. It's sparking the process of the awakening of the heart. They can't do it all. The person has to begin to do that already. They accelerate. That's why it also doesn't. There's no such thing as permission. There's no such thing as privacy. Nobody has permission. Nobody has free will in terms of what happens in the world. You only have free will over what you do. So in that sense, that question makes no sense. 2, what you do, anyone can come along. You're running up a hill. Anyone can come along and give you a little boost. You're not going to sit there and be like, no, I'm going to literally run out of fuel and water and I want to die in this desert. No one would do that. No one does that. And if a person does do that, guess what? You go in the psych ward. Not this psych ward, but the universal psych ward, the actual nursery.
Okay.
So, universal terms, it's a nursery where everyone loves you, not a place where you get jabbed and injected and stuff, and there's like all this molestation and weird stuff going on. No, that's crazy. But that's the point, that if a person's here to help you, it's like, we're here to help, we're going to do a boost. And the person's like, no, I don't need help, I'm going to die, screw you. Of course, that's because you need help. You just literally proved our point. If the person's like, all right, I'm going to do it on my own or something. Okay, well then, chances are they're not going to ask, you're not going to need help. That's the whole point. It's just a spark of intentions. So the people who are already doing this, if their trajectory is pointing in the direction where they want to go and there's just a little bit required power, they're not going to say, because you didn't completely overcome everything perfectly, even though your intentions are pure, and if we gave you a ride, none of this is done to people. Meaning it can't be done for people. It cannot be done. They have to do it themselves, and they can be assisted in that. That's the whole point. But if they say somebody was teleported into heaven or something, and their trajectory was right, their heart was pure, they let go of attachments, there wouldn't be a problem. If you take somebody who didn't do that and put them in heaven, there's clouds now, and it starts to thunderstorm, and everybody starts to get sick and die, and they have to leave that locality, and that leaving is that person going back into the hell realm of the mundane of earth, or whatever you want to call it. It can't happen. The two don't mix like oil and water for somebody who hasn't let go of that lower aspect. It's the last aspect is the least easy to explain or understandable. But it's like there's that happen, and then there's an infolding that occurs. It's like an inside-out unfolding, where what we are here, and that we is to go from the pyramid down here to the pyramid up there, and we become spirit. We step into the embodiment of true spiritual awareness. We basically, when the energy's high, when there's attachments that are let go and it's clear, and we're spinning in the centered perfect, and the energy's high, we're doing this like you're doing. It's expanding. We do something there, which is only described as stepping into the fullness of your being. And whatever choice you make there is the energy, just like the long body. It's not, when you do that maximally, it's not a minute, a second, an hour. It's one life in one motion. Whatever you do in that point, in that pinnacle, that becomes who you are for eternity. That becomes the evidence, the eruption, if you will, the expression of who you are spiritually for all eternity. And we don't get opportunities to do that much, imagine that. But this is what's happening to the species, that we're going to get this pinnacle event, and that's the breaking of us. We go into time at that point, and in that sense, we go out of time. We're into an eternal state, where it's all of time. So you want to do that the right way. You want to do that. Whatever you do there is going to be who you are forever. No amount of what can happen after that can change this. Like you have a pinnacle event in your life, and somebody does something one way that they don't want because it doesn't match themselves. Now they're not themselves for the rest of their life, and it's always chasing them. It's like this for eternity. You only get one of those basically, but also the idea is that you make it what it is, and you always get a chance as long as there's a civilization around to get to that. But the point is, if we have a bunch of tech and a bunch of wars and a bunch of crazy stuff people are doing, because we're at that point where the frequency is just saying, make your decision, people. What, you're going to become immortal techno gods and not have made the decision of overcoming these fears and this and the other, or what, you're going to become this spiritual cosmic being that becomes all of your bloodline ancestors permeated through one moment in time, connecting through, and you know everything, but you're not going to get over your fears and this and the other. It's beckoning us to overcome this, because what the barrier between having to do this because it's now and not having to do this because it's off in the distance is shrinking. And the more stuff that we do here is leading up to this pinnacle of awakening of all of time and space where we can't hide it anymore. So you do it as long as there's a physical plane here to subside, if you will, to give you that opportunity to fall asleep so that you can wake up. Physical plane is not always going to be here. There's some people that are so advanced that their emotions alter time for all of the species, alter civilizations. These groups, the majority of them, are actually trying to limit that so the timelines don't collapse. Because some people are waking up, and if they have a bad day, it alters 100 million people's days. And that's what's going on. And then you imagine groups of that. So that's what's happening. And our species is reaching the point where now we're in a trajectory, a interference pattern where what we do is at such a high power level that our mind and our physical essence is becoming one regardless of how it's going to turn out, regardless of the difference between it, meaning once it forces to happen, if that ego is still there, that's where we're projecting into this fake holographic puppet marionette doll. What happens to an ego between two trucks or something like that? It blows apart. You don't want that. You want to be in the spirit when that happens and the two merge in this transcendent if-then, physical, metaphysical, high-low thing that becomes one eternal aspect that can't be defined. If we think it's one defined thing, what happens to that definition? It goes and just destroys itself. It's this thing that spins, that rips apart because it's imbalanced. So that's what's happening. That's where we got to be. And the last thing is stepping into that. It's kind of like a sealing, like a seal of your beingness, because it's like you make an intention in that spot, in that pinnacle of that high energy of literally a high spiritual experience where there's so much feeling in you, there's so much happening within you that whatever you do there becomes more important than any other experience that you've had. And when you do that, and it's pure intention of free will and pure being, it basically seals you into this eternal state. It's like you reached a high level of frequency. It's like a thermometer or speedometer that matches and tells you throughout the night, or your heart rate monitor or something, that tells you what was the highest level and the lowest level or something. That matches your highest level. That level is what is throughout all eternity. It can never really go higher than that, because we don't have such a way of holding the mundane, the low, and stretching out and making the top. You can go in heaven or the eternal realm and you're just going as high as you can go. But what does that mean if there's no base level of the pyramid stretched out to make it expand and be proportionally relevant and therefore dualized in this materialistic world to show you at the lowest of the low and the highest of the high? We need hell down there so that we can push heaven up here and make that in-between as expanse. We need to use this place to make that in-between as expanse as we can, because that's our universe from there on out in time. And so all those combined, we do that with the pinnacle is this self-awareness, intention, stepping into your being. That's all I can use to describe that now. That's the one no one can help you do. If somebody can clean up your ego, this, that, and the other point, like that's going to rip you apart. You don't let go of that, etc. So on, or you don't move to the center of that, the harmonization, the first aspect. Then the letting go to increasing the spin. They can point it all out. They can help that up, loose it, whatever. They can't say, all right, now be who you are. Accept. Fall into places and let it be, not fall into places, but that none of that works. You got to do it to yourself. It's this little piece within you that accepts and is what it is, and you simultaneously become what you are by being what you always have been. And it's something that happens. It's that 0 point in and out, and when it happens, it goes as far as it can go. And the idea is that when it maximizes and goes beyond the limits of what we call time and space, your essence merges with spirit. Spirit is non-local outside of this awareness. Basically, you become self-aware in that state. That's the idea. You do all those things. Maybe you're just doing them. You become self-aware at this point. You self-observe, and you create this feedback loop that creates that epiphany of happening. And when that occurs, your body merges with the spirit, and you're in an eternal state. And that means that who you are here can never go away. You become who you are forever. The only way to do that is to be the pure intentions, the pure heart. The ego, the other aspect, can never do that. It gets shot back out at the end like the camel through the eye of the needle. It never makes it to the fractal convergence point. It basically degrades, melts, whatever you want to look at it as. Like you're trying to shove a steel beam through a pinhole in a pipe or something like that. It doesn't work. You'll get a lot of energy and a lot of heat, but it's going to spray half of it out and it's going to rip the whole structure apart. And so in other essence, the energy increases. It's only possible when we remove the efficiency, the drag, basically like taking your clothes off. It's like the spiritual clothes, the garments of the stuff that holds us back, that is our identity, that is only relative to this world. We become that non-local identity, which is beyond names, beyond definitions, beyond all that stuff. But the point is, you accept yourself as the true identity. That's like I'm trying to describe the last part of it because it's the most vague. It's the only part that only you can do, but it's you know yourself fully for the first time. Put it that way. You know yourself fully for the first time after all of that. And that person you know there never goes away. It's not immortal because it doesn't die. A body becoming immortal is a loophole you have to use to keep the body alive. It becomes eternal, everlasting because it's pure energy. I think that satisfied me, at least.
That's good. And thank you very much. The one thing that to me is just so really clear, because you're not the only one sharing this information. There's different ways that people express it, but it's really about just knowing that you have created your reality, knowing that you, in order for you to exit this universe or this matrix or this creation, however you want to term it, it's really about your choices, your effort, your decisions, to remember who you are, to embrace that you're a sovereign being, to own it and take responsibility for it. So that's just how I'd like to close, and I really appreciate what you shared. There's no way that I can get to everyone's questions because, but we'll definitely have another opportunity to go over the questions. So I apologize to anyone that I didn't get your questions asked, but you won't be forgotten the next time we have a conversation. I will always pick up wherever I left off. So I just want to thank you very much for everything you shared. I think you did a great job of sharing and expressing everything that was asked.
Thank you. And this, I don't want to say rambly, because these are some of the concepts that, when you see what they really mean, rambly is the least of the words or the worries. And that's the paradox as it is. I don't want to say that because it degrades it or something. Well, no, because it doesn't matter. And why you don't, it's a paradox of what it is, but it's pure. Once we all understand what it is, that we're in control. And it was like a few questions there, but just a bunch of talking. But it might be one of the only things we actually need to through and through understand, at least, my humble rambly opinion, because it covers the concepts of the timelines, the organizations. Basically, a pyramid is the higher dimensional organization. A spiral from low to high is the differential for universes. It's not a line. It's not a incremental. It's a fractal spiral. And the fractal holographic infection is the repeating of the same loop over and over again, which is by memory wiping and going into this nightmare zone in between rungs, days, moments, universes, weeks, whatever you want to call it, because all time is the same, and letting the lower aspect of our imagination overtake the higher aspect. The self-validation, scapegoating, staying true to self-accountability, the upcoming unveiling, which has already begun, but these possibilities for programming, memory restoration, solar flare, solar changes, interdimensional, extradimensional concepts. Oh, and then the other thing that I didn't say is I wrote it down, I'm glad I looked, is that one of the main things about why this period is what it is that in 2010, I was informed the government, there's no such thing. They also showed all the government officials come out. It's like, dude, they run the show. We just like play poker with y'all. That's
right.
We play with your money. That's all we do. And we're not trying to be assholes. We can't. What do you mean? What are we gonna do? So I was like, wow, damn. All right, there's no government. But are using a remote viewing. They had to shut it down because it was creating quantum temporal distortions, which is like feedback loops, and that could have been the cause of these paradoxes as well. It begins again in September because the solar, so now it's tying all together. It was because of some energy coming through from some galactic center, and I don't believe in external space, and they don't either apparently, but it's a way of looking at holographic information in a mapped out form. It's like a blueprint in your computer system, and if you went and said file system here, home folder, this program, a DVD drive, whatever, and you literally looked at your computer and tried to find the one block and the other block, and clearly not physical. It's a blueprint. You can see the pieces, but they don't look like that. They're all just jumbled together. That's kind of how they describe the universe in these different areas. And for instance, galaxies, you just go over there, tweak the energy that way. Now there's a different galaxy, and it opens up and you see this different timeline. It's like, is that's Earth 3 or something like that. Whatever. And then there's the one that the other guys took over and stuff like that. And they're all managing it like their timeline management. And, but there's some high energy. And so they couldn't keep the viewing device open because the energy was making the information surrounding what they were looking through merge in with what was viewing. And if it basically crosses the stream fully and disconnects while the viewing is taking place, it causes this type of weird quantum disconnection or collapse. Basically, the people viewing become lost in time, and they can't actually cycle around back to the present moment, the exact second. And it's as if they're like, it's really weird. They become like these quantum ghosts that have to lay these pathways up for people to find the secret knowledge or pathway and go to the location. And there'll be a vortex point, and they can communicate there. But other than that, they can't actually re-access this universe. It's really, really weird. And part of these situations were to regain the operatives that were more or less lost in time, which is a really cartoony shortcut way of explaining it. But for the people who don't really have another way of realizing what's going on, that's the best way to look at it. And so that caused a lot of problems. So they deactivated the system. It reactivates September, and everyone says, we can't have you activated again. The dark groups that are like, well, stop us. Go ahead. What are you going to do? I don't even know. What are you going to do? Whatever could be done to them, they do to anybody. The most innocent of beings, they do it. So it's like they're cosmic level, those beings. And so in other words, they're saying, you're going to possibly destroy the universe. Great. Let's do it. Whatever. And so everything is about overcoming that. To overcome that, we have to stabilize ourselves through that method, that essence that I described, to the point where if we all did that, the universe could blow up. It wouldn't do anything. We could literally paint the universe as we walk around ourselves, because then there's more mind than physicality. Remember, something happens in that state, you go to a universe, a timeline where that didn't happen. It's by choice. It's not by incident. And so at that point, nobody can do anything. They know that. They know that's why they want people to stay out of power and keep it low vibration, low energy, because the same cycles keep repeating. And they're content with that. They're like grown-up kids with, apparently they have every disorder known to man and disorders that have not been named or invented in this dimension yet. And it's part of their rituals. It's how they do it. It creates these fomenting of desires and problems that fully inverts the structure and creates this transsexual energy of cosmic, higher, lower, demonic possession beingness. And so it's basically difficult, very, very difficult to communicate with them, but they know fear and they know the end. And so part of this was, though, okay, the leeches don't want the body to die. Yeah. They know that's the only way they can actually die. Right. They can hop from body to body, but they can't make their own food. And so they know if they go into a place where everyone's dead, they're not going to come back. They don't have a box to put themselves into. They kind of sealed that off for themselves. The only box they have is an eternal abyss.
Yeah, I've been telling, a lot of people talk about depopulation, and I'm like, it doesn't make sense if you're being fed off of that they would also want to kill you off. It makes much more sense that they would want to keep you sick.
As much energy, that's the algorithm for the audio balancing. As much energy as possible, but the lowest awareness as possible. Yeah. Just like kids or something. They want people in an eternal innocent state where they have the eternal vulnerability state. Not really innocence, but vulnerable. And also they do want innocence because they can't feed off of impure parts. They can't feed off of themselves the same way they can feed off of somebody who doesn't do anything that they do. Yeah. Part of this whole process. And so, and then the holographic nature of the place and how outside of the physical, it becomes a virtual kind of holographic projection where even if you look at systems that map it out, it's virtual. And nature of the parasites, physical imagination, spirit is long body, highest potentiality. The base reality is the highest potentiality. The mundane is the lowest. And then check out the discovery and then say a little bit about the extraction. So thank you.
Thank you.
This was a good one. That's a good one. I seemingly have the most fun with you on these excursions. And that's the idea that because we feel different, this is the equivalent in real terms of going on a journey. We didn't go anywhere, but we're in a different dimension of overlay of where we are because our frequency is different.
Yeah.
Literally, if you map everything out and it's all frequency energy, we went across the map. And that happens all the time. At least that's how I feel. I'm not like, I'm gonna say like this is groundbreaking. But that feeling of, even being tired or something, why is that? What energy did we use up to feel tired? Brain is a travel device if you use it right. The mind is. All right, so thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I had a great time with you too. I really enjoyed talking to you, and I learned a lot from the conversation. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Good night.
All right.